Sup, my fellas. Don't forget to leave feedback, and enjoy the story. Miho, the MC of the story, looks like an ordinary schoolboy, but he has one special trait. Inside him flows dangerous demonic power. He was walking home from school with his buddy, when suddenly he heard some thug asking him for a debt. The hero didn't get scared, instead, he grinned wickedly. He was thrilled to have a chance to smash their faces, and silently followed the thug. When the bully started threatening him, the hero just kept staring and smiling. The bastard couldn't handle his empty gaze and raised his fist to strike. Demonic power exploded. He grabbed his hand, hit him so hard that the scumbag flew away like the last piece of trash. The hero took down the rest one by one, not even breathing hard. But just 2 days ago, he was still living in his own world, the demon realm. There, without orders, he executed an entire demon clan that had been pissing him off. For this, his father, the demon king, chained him right in front of the council. The hero tried to justify himself, but the council didn't even listen. By his own father's decision, he was sentenced to exile in the human world. And in that very moment, he woke up in the body of an ordinary teenager. He finds himself in a human bedroom, gasping from the shock of arrival. Looking at his hands, he realizes he truly occupies a human body. The body trembles weakly under his control. Pain surges through him as he struggles to adjust. He curses as the truth sinks in that he has really fallen into the human realm. Still furious, he swears revenge on Bambi for exploiting his exile. At the same time, he is appalled by how frail and painful this human body feels. He tries to move and immediately feels the body's limitations. Standing up only confirms that he is trapped in a pitiful mortal vessel. He bitterly blames the remnants of House Hilt for dragging him to this point. Even the human atmosphere disgusts him, and he complains that breathing without demonic sulfur feels wrong. A sound at the door interrupts his complaints as someone cautiously peeks in. A girl calls out to him with desperate relief. She rushes in, overjoyed that he is finally awake. She throws herself at him, confessing she feared he would never wake up. Lavis, unfamiliar with her, guesses she must be the body's younger sister. Their mother arrives and calls him Minho, confirming the human identity he now wears. The mother breaks down in gratitude and sorrow, convinced her son has suffered terribly. Lavis stands frozen, unsure how a human is supposed to respond to this kind of affection. He concludes that human relationships may be a special kind of hell and wonders if he can survive them. Footsteps announce another arrival. The father enters with a stern, distant calm rather than relief. The mother informs him that Minho has awakened. The father studies him in silence, creating immediate tension. Instead of comfort, he orders Minho to stop drifting and return to school after a week in bed. When the mother worries about his condition, the father dismisses it as long as he is conscious. The sister anxiously asks if he is alright, but Lavis is already judging the family dynamic. He senses something dark and unsettling in the father. To his own surprise, he finds himself liking the man. That reaction startles him, because it suggests there are humans here who resemble demons. Realizing he lacks this body's memories, he decides he must stay cautious and keep pretending. The next day he is taken to Minho's school, which he regards with disbelief. His mother fusses over him and tells him to call if he feels sick during class. She leaves still worried, while he remains detached. Lavis scoffs inwardly that he finished school centuries ago in the demon realm. Being forced to attend a human school at his age feels like a fresh layer of punishment. He concludes again that human relationships are indeed hell. He enters class 2 to 3, the place where this new life must continue. Watching the short-lived humans around him, he decides they are too insignificant to bother with. His plan becomes simple: stay quiet, avoid trouble, and survive exile without losing his soul. He reminds himself that crushing House Hill bought him time, and that he must eventually return to seize the demon throne. Until then, he must protect Vindika's future by enduring this humiliation. That resolve is immediately tested when classmates greet Minho with false friendliness. Lavis senses trouble at once. The ringleader demands overdue fees from Minho and grabs him like a debtor rather than a friend. Lavis notices the body instinctively shrinking in fear, revealing how badly Minho has been conditioned. A flash of memory shows Minho being brutally bullied by these same boys. Their smug faces make clear this abuse is routine entertainment for them. They laugh as if tormenting him is nothing. The memory reveals Minho crying helplessly under their violence. Lavis understands at last what kind of life this body has endured. He realizes the body's lingering pain came from repeated beatings by these bullies. The torment continues as they mock Minho for fearing his own so-called friends. They demand money again and call it proof of friendship, turning extortion into a joke. Lavis is stunned to discover that he, a demon prince, is being bullied by humans. That humiliation triggers a memory from demon school, where humans were taught as contemptible creatures. Young demons had mocked humans as hornless, filthy beings unworthy of respect. Their teacher reinforced that humans are vulgar creatures who hide weakness behind behavior and appearances. The lesson went further, portraying humans as foolish beings who worship both demons and angels. Young Lavis had concluded that such creatures deserved only destruction. His teacher had praised that ruthless instinct. She taught him that if he ever met a human, he should crush its vulgarity without hesitation. Back in the present, Lavis cannot tolerate that a mere human dares lay hands on him. The bully remains oblivious, still checking his phone while asserting dominance. Lavis reaches for him with sudden intent. In one brutal motion, he slams the boy down and proves how foolish human arrogance is. The classroom freezes as the victim realizes too late that Minho is no longer helpless. Another bully charges in outrage, calling him insane. At that moment, Lavis feels his sealed magic stir in response. The attacker mistakes the change for madness and threatens him again. He lunges with a punch, expecting the old victim to fold. Instead, Lavis discovers that human insults themselves are stimulating his magic. He recognizes a direct link between profanity and the return of his power. Using that awakening, he counters with overwhelming force. The second bully is sent flying across the room. The surrounding students stare in disbelief as Minho overturns the hierarchy in seconds. Lavis is astonished that his magic can still answer him despite the seal. He concludes that even in a human body, malice can awaken his demonic power. A bespectacled classmate wonders whether this fierce figure can really be the Minho he knows. Another bully raises a chair to stop him, convinced Minho will kill someone if unchecked. The classmate who had tried to help earlier warns Lavis from behind. Lavis senses the attack without even turning. He strikes first and smashes the ambusher before the chair can land. The attacker collapses, gasping in disbelief at being overpowered so completely. Reduced to the floor, he can only spit curses at the boy he used to dominate. Lavis coldly repeats the lesson that humans use vulgarity to hide weakness and asks whether cursing makes him strong. Then he decides to answer that question with another kick. The blow crashes into the bully's face and ends his resistance. As his power surges, Lavis recalls the deeper truth he was taught, the source of human profanity. He identifies that source as his own mother, a revelation tied to his demonic heritage and power. The last bully lies broken and unconscious on the floor. The class erupts in shock as students realize Minho has beaten Taewoo and Songjun by himself. Lavis briefly reminds himself of his original plan to remain quiet, but with a dark smile, he abandons that restraint almost immediately. He looks around the room for anyone else willing to challenge him. Inviting more insults, he openly dares the class to curse at him so he can keep fighting. The students can only stare, unable to reconcile this ruthless figure with the Minho they knew. Even his would-be ally is left wondering whether Minho was always this strong. No one moves as Lavis stands over the fallen bullies like a new ruler of the classroom. The helpful classmate cautiously asks if he is all right. Lavis answers with a satisfied smile rather than gratitude. Remembering that this boy tried to help Minho before, he marks him as useful. He decides on the spot to keep the classmate close as his attendant while assuring everyone he is fine. Outside the classroom, word of Minho's impossible victory begins to spread as admiration replaces fear. As they walk home, Shaun jokingly wonders whether Miho has turned into the kind of hero who came from another world, and Miho is briefly alarmed that his true nature has been exposed. Shaun keeps piling on fantasy scenarios, comparing Miho to someone reincarnated from a martial world or trapped inside a game. Miho immediately starts calculating whether this harmless classmate has somehow seen through his identity as a demon. That suspicion triggers a memory of a lesson from the demon world. In the human realm, demons must never kill humans, because doing so destroys the killer's soul completely. His teacher had stressed that human death cannot be treated casually, no matter what other demons say in passing. The rule came from the demon's role itself, since they are beings who preside over death rather than slaughtering humans freely. Even so, the younger Lavis had questioned why demons should hold back when humans constantly tried to kill one another. His teacher answered that human foolishness is exactly why demons must exist to govern death instead of abusing it. Young Lavis had remained unconvinced, already chafing against restraint. He had dismissed the warning at the time, thinking it irrelevant because he never expected to enter the human realm himself. Back in the present, Miho realizes that if humans learn too much about him, he cannot simply silence them by killing them. Shaun, unaware of Miho's panic, wistfully says that if reincarnation were real, escaping into another world would be nice. He reveals a deeper longing by admitting he wishes he could wake up somewhere else entirely. Miho senses intense misery in Shaun and recognizes him as someone carrying desperate suffering. Trying to stay casual, Miho dismisses reincarnation as nonsense. Shaun responds with quiet sincerity, saying he knows how much Miho endured before finally snapping, which reassures Miho that his secret is still safe. Shaun then praises Miho for how impressive he was earlier, clearly admiring the way he stood up for them. Instead of feeling pleased, Miho is offended that a mere human dares to evaluate him at all. That night, the story shifts to Miho's apartment as he reflects on his strange condition. He concludes that human curses somehow activated his demonic power, even though a demon trapped in a human body should not be able to use magic. When he tests that power again, he is startled by what begins happening inside his body. He studies himself closely, trying to confirm the phenomenon. The result matches his suspicion, and he starts to believe his limits may not apply anymore. With growing arrogance, he declares that Lavis Vindica truly has no boundaries. That confidence is shattered when a sudden wave of pain tears through him. The agony intensifies so badly that he can barely stay upright. The room falls quiet except for his labored struggle to endure it. He realizes this human body is far too weak to contain his power, and the pain spreads through every part of him. After only a single day as a human, he already finds the experience unbearably miserable. The suffering becomes so severe that he despairs over something as basic as being unable to sleep. Eventually exhaustion wins, and he finally passes out despite the pain. Time moves from night to day and then toward evening again. By the next day, school has resumed its ordinary rhythm. Walking across campus, Shaun happily celebrates having a normal school day again and thanks Miho for protecting them from being harassed. Miho brushes off the gratitude, saying he would rather just beat people up, while privately wanting to test his power further. Before he can go looking for trouble, someone calls him by name. Miho turns, puzzled by the interruption. A senior confronts him and demands to know whether he was the one who laid hands on his younger brother. The senior frames it as betrayal, claiming he had been shielding Miho for almost nothing, and this is how Miho repays him. Shaun is stunned by the accusation and the sudden danger. Miho, however, hears only another insult and openly admits he was the one responsible. Instead of backing down, he eagerly agrees to follow the senior, practically welcoming the chance for violence. The confrontation moves to a secluded construction area where the senior prepares to punish him. There, the senior scolds his younger brother for getting beaten by someone he considers weak, while the younger one apologizes nervously. Facing Miho directly, the senior wonders what to do with him now that he has caused this trouble. He decides he cannot let Miho walk away, because it would make him look like a brother who cannot control his own family. To humiliate him, he jabs a finger at Miho and drags Miho's mother into the insult. He sneers that Miho must have learned from her to beat up decent kids. That insult hits a buried nerve, and Miho answers with chilling calm that yes, his mother did teach him that. The senior realizes too late that he has provoked something dangerous. When the senior moves to strike, he is thrown off by the fact that Miho is smiling instead of flinching. Miho slips past the attack with eerie composure. He revels in the cruelty of the insult, thinking that the sharpest curses are the sweetest because they remind him of his mother. His demonic eye flares, and he seizes control of the fight with supernatural force. The senior recoils in shock, unable to understand what Miho just did. Miho invokes his mother as the source of the poison placed in human tongues, treating human malice as something sacred. Then he slams the senior down with brutal force, drawing blood and instantly overturning the power balance. He pauses only long enough to savor the moment. As he continues beating the senior, Miho reflects that physical violence only wounds flesh. What truly matters to him is the corrosive power of words, because curses gnaw at the soul, and he imagines the victim's desperate cries reaching his mother. The gang panics as their leader is overwhelmed and calls out to him in horror. Shaun can only watch in stunned terror as Miho becomes something unrecognizable. The injured senior orders his friends to stop standing around and attack Miho together. Miho welcomes that decision, pleased that they are coming at him as a group. To him, more enemies only make the game better. He tears through the group in a frenzy, his power swelling as the greater threat gathers against him. With his demonic eye blazing, he moves through them like a predator. Shaun screams as the violence escalates beyond anything he can process. The construction site fills with the sounds of bodies being thrown and struck. At the height of the chaos, Miho extends his hand as if conducting the slaughter. When the last resistance fades, he exhales in satisfaction. The gang lies broken around him, and Miho finds the aftermath invigorating rather than horrifying. He even recalls an uncle from the demon world who celebrated violence, finally understanding why humans were allowed to wield it. While Shaun timidly calls his name, Miho thanks that uncle as though he has received a revelation. Miho stands amid the wreckage with a serene smile, fully intoxicated by what he has done. Nearby, a small creature with glowing red eyes watches from a hole in the wall. Its gaze confirms that this scene is being observed for a purpose. Miho addresses the unseen watcher, reporting that the task he was given has been carried out properly. In the demon world, his words are heard through a portal by his uncle Barca and another cloaked figure. Barca casually crushes a lesser creature underfoot while listening, showing how little value he places on life. Amused, he notes that his gift seems to suit his nephew very well. The cloaked observer identifies that gift as a demon bloodstone embedded in Lavis's eye in place of the taboo stone he should have had. That revelation makes clear that Lavis has been altered in a dangerous and deliberate way. The observer wonders how long Lavis will be able to endure under those conditions. The scene broadens to the demon realm, where higher powers discuss him from afar. They acknowledge that Lavis has already wiped out the Hilka family, proving how destructive he has become. The cloaked demon remarks that Lavis always forces his own way no matter the consequences. Barca laughs that no one could ever truly control him, and blames the merciless decision to throw such a stubborn brat into the human realm. Another elder states the harsh doctrine for handling vicious high-ranking demons: only forceful subjugation works. The cloaked figure identifies that doctrine as the creed of the great demon king Gamudere. Barca adds that the human realm is where the demon world dumps its worst criminals, so Lavis was never going to adapt peacefully. He remembers Lavis as a troublesome child who grew up into exactly the kind of menace everyone feared. The cloaked figure asks whether that is why Barca gave him the demon bloodstone in the first place. Before the answer comes, the cloaked demon reports that preparations to manifest another sinner into the human realm are complete. Barca orders the summoner to show him the result. The ritual begins as black-purple power spills from the summoner's hand. That power pours into the vessel and opens a path for something to emerge. The summoner explains that now Lavis has descended to the human realm, he will inevitably come face to face with the beings being sent after him. Barca steps forward, eager to see the outcome. He reaches into the forming darkness, as if shaping it personally. The summoner and Barca combine their power, feeding the portal together. The vortex swells into a massive, violent manifestation. Watching from the human side, Miho hears Barca's delighted voice praising how exciting his nephew has become. Barca promises that Lavis will soon experience true darkness. The story then cuts back to the human world, where Shaun excitedly recounts Miho's fight over food, amazed that even Tewu fell so easily. To Shaun, the whole thing felt like watching an action movie, and he cannot hide his admiration. Miho tries to act unfazed and mocks the spicy food as unimpressive, even while tears stream from his eyes and Shaun catches him crying. Shaun teases him for ordering food that was too spicy, but Miho stubbornly insists that a demon who avoids hell is no demon at all. Their meal is interrupted when Shaun's phone starts vibrating on the table. The caller is Jin Jae-hee, and the name alone changes the mood. Shaun immediately tenses, clearly afraid of what that call means. Miho notices Shaun hesitating to answer and questions him, but Shaun cannot explain openly. Instead, Shaun claims he has just received an urgent call. He abruptly excuses himself and tells Miho to keep eating while he leaves first. Miho watches him go, suspicious that something is wrong. Left alone, he keeps eating in silence, but his attention is no longer on the food. That night, the story follows Shaun into a deserted alley. He arrives at an unmarked door, clearly heading somewhere he fears. Inside, a tattoo machine is prepared, turning the place into a site of punishment rather than art. Shaun enters a room where Jae-hee is tattooing a restrained debtor while warning him not to move if he wants to avoid more pain. She coldly explains that he should have paid on time and that his failure has only created extra work for her. When she finishes, she cheerfully announces that the punishment is complete. She admires the result on the victim's forehead with detached satisfaction. At that moment, Shaun is brought in and presented to her. He trembles as he addresses Jae-hee, unable to hide his fear. Jae-hee greets him with false warmth and calls him closer so he can inspect the debtor's mark. Under the harsh light, the lesson becomes impossible to ignore. She forces Shaun to look directly at the branded wound instead of averting his eyes. Then she asks him what the mark means, turning the scene into a test. She explains that the character means thief bastard, making the punishment both physical and public. She reminds Shaun that this man was punished for failing to repay a debt. Then she turns the real threat on Shaun by asking how their own promise is progressing. Shaun falters, unable to give the answer she wants. All he can admit is that problems keep interfering, which only sounds like another excuse. Jae-hee takes that as insolence and knocks him down, demanding to know whether he thinks this is a joke. As her men hold him in place, she mocks how slow he is to understand the seriousness of his situation. Shaun tries to shield himself, but he is helpless. Jae-hee presses the tattoo machine toward his hand and threatens to carve the lesson into him if that is what it takes. Terrified, Shaun begs her not to do it. She leans in and tells him to listen very carefully. This, she says, is the last chance she is willing to give him. She orders him to do exactly as instructed from now on. Then she adds that he must make sure everything is ready, leaving Shaun wondering in despair whether he can really carry out whatever she demands. Later that night, the sky darkens over the city as Shaun returns home with that threat hanging over him. Alone in his room, he sits at his computer and starts working frantically. He tells himself that if he does not do this, Jae-hee will act. His hands shake as he forces himself to continue anyway. The thought he cannot escape is that Jin Jae-hee will come after him if he fails. So he remains at his desk deep into the night, trapped between fear and whatever task he has been ordered to complete. Outside, the apartment building stands silent, while the danger closing around both boys continues to grow. A boy wakes in agony, realizing his body is so weak that even spicy food and minor exertion leave him feeling ruined. As the pain spreads through his stomach and shoulder, he bitterly recognizes how fragile this human body is. Furious at that weakness, he rejects the body as pathetic instead of accepting its limits. He forces himself into training and swears that Lavis Vindica will not be defeated by something this trivial. He decides he will rebuild and rehabilitate this worthless body no matter what it takes. With sheer stubbornness, he vows that pain alone will never make him submit. The scene shifts as time passes. Morning arrives at school, returning the story to ordinary life on the surface. In the hallway, Shaun stands alone with the app in his hand, too troubled to speak. He stares at the device that started all of this, weighing what it has brought into his life. Shaun admits to himself that the app is not just strange but dangerously tied to recent events. The more he thinks about it, the more certain he becomes that keeping it is risky. He recalls Jin Jae-hee calmly ordering preparations, confirming that a larger plan is already in motion. That memory hardens Shaun's anxiety into grim concentration. Cornered by what he knows, he panics over what he is supposed to do next. Minho suddenly greets him, jolting Shaun out of his spiraling thoughts. Minho notices Shaun's extreme reaction and immediately senses that something is wrong. For a moment Shaun considers asking Minho for help, but Minho's presence only reminds him how much danger that would invite. Shaun decides against involving him. He concludes that even Minho would be at risk if Jin Jae-hee became aware of him. Determined not to drag his friend into this, Shaun keeps his fears to himself. Before he can respond, Minho catches a familiar scent in the air. That scent triggers recognition just as a girl suddenly collapses nearby. Shaun realizes the fallen student is Sunji and rushes toward her. The hallway erupts in alarm as students gather and urge her to wake up. Shaun kneels beside her, trying to find out whether she is injured or conscious. Sunji can barely respond, coughing and writhing in obvious distress. Her pain spikes so violently that even Shaun recoils. Minho's eye changes as he senses demonic energy inside a human body, something that should not be possible. As adults and students rush over, the situation becomes too public to ignore. Staff carry Sunji away to the infirmary, assuming it is a medical emergency, but Minho remains focused on the supernatural trace she leaves behind. As she is moved, he spots a crest on her arm that confirms his suspicion. He recognizes it as the symbol of the Hilka family, which should never appear on a human. That impossible detail convinces him he has to investigate personally. By night, the mystery has followed him to the hospital. Outside Sunji's room, Minho arrives in disguise and finds a guard watching the door. He stops the guard before she can enter and interfere. When she explains that Sunji needs rest and cannot receive visitors, he ignores the warning. He closes the distance before she can react. Using demonic power, he erases her awareness and casts her into oblivion. The guard falls under his spell instantly. Her eyes empty as her will is overwritten. She collapses into a passive, seated stupor. With the obstacle neutralized, Minho leaves her behind and enters Sunji's room. He notes that even a faint amount of demonic power can produce this much control, though only temporarily. Satisfied the guard will stay quiet for now, he proceeds inside. Sunji notices him and immediately becomes wary. Seeing a hooded stranger at her bedside, she demands to know who he is. Instead of answering, he turns the question back on her and challenges the identity she is hiding. She reacts with anger and confusion, offended by the intrusion. Minho seizes her wrist before she can pull away or bluff her way out. His grip makes it clear this is an interrogation, not a conversation. He remains cold and unreadable while tightening control of the exchange. Exposing the crest on her arm, he demands to know why a human bears the Hilka family symbol. Sunji insists she has no idea what he is talking about. Minho warns that lies will only make what comes next worse. He presses further and demands her true identity. The pressure terrifies her so badly that she can barely breathe. As she stares at his eye, she begins to understand what he really is. She realizes in horror that the one interrogating her is a demon. Minho starts to answer, but her fear cuts him off. She demands the truth from him instead, desperate to regain control. Breaking down, she insists she knows nothing except what Jae-hee told her. She confesses that Jae-hee ordered her to get the tattoo to join his crew and promised her diet pills as part of it. That confession confirms for Minho that the scent on her came from an external source, not from her nature. He recognizes it as a smell he has encountered before in the demon realm. Elsewhere, Lavis heads deeper into a forbidden area despite being called back. When asked where he is going, he keeps moving toward the restricted depths. Bambi warns him that the place is off-limits and dangerous. Lavis glances back, unimpressed by the warning. He mocks Bambi for being timid. Bambi bristles at the insult but cannot deny his fear. He claims he is only worried about punishment, and Lavis bluntly tells him to leave if that is all he cares about. Bambi refuses, admitting he cannot abandon Lavis when trouble is certain to follow. Resigned, he asks how far this reckless search is going to go. Together they press deeper into the dark ruin. Bambi finally asks whether Lavis already knows what they are looking for. Lavis says he does not, forcing Bambi to explain his theory first. Bambi begins with an old story about beings whose eyes transcend the limits of their species. According to him, such eyes can lose their sight in only two ways. Either overwhelming light blinds them, or total darkness starves their vision until it atrophies. Bambi's own unease grows as he realizes how well this place fits that legend. Lavis suddenly senses a presence nearby and warns that something is here. A strange purple glow leads them to a grotesque flower growing from the wall. Bambi can only stare, unable to identify what he is seeing. Lavis moves in despite Bambi's warning that approaching it is dangerous. Up close, the bloom looks unnatural and predatory. Bambi recognizes the victim beside it as Jeremy Hiltka. Jeremy is already dead, his body overtaken by the flowers before they arrived. The blossoms have consumed his face and spread across his corpse. When Bambi reaches toward one in confusion, Lavis urgently stops him. The flower reacts instantly, lashing out with flesh-like tendrils. Lavis tears it free despite the stench, protecting Bambi from contact. Bambi is horrified by what Lavis is holding. He identifies it as the gnawing flower, a deadly plant from the demon realm. Lavis confirms the smell matches exactly, linking the human world incidents to demon world corruption. Back in the hospital room, Sunji begs for mercy once she realizes how deep this goes. Minho falls silent, weighing her fear against the information he still needs. His attention shifts to the window when he senses another presence outside. A bat-like demon appears and addresses Lavis directly, proving he is being watched. The creature greets him with eager anticipation, as if this encounter was expected. The story cuts to the city night as Lavis follows the trail alone. He moves through a back alley, tracking the source of the scent. The trail leads him to Jean Jae-hee's tattoo shop. With the Hilka crest and the gnawing flower now connected, he doubts any of this is coincidence. Inside the building, the trail continues deeper through the corridors. Nearby, Jae-hee's men discuss how their boss is really after Shaun Zap, not Shaun himself. One thug casually flaunts a new drug called Blue Ribbon, treating it like a toy. The others recognize it as Youngmu's recent creation. They warn that the drug is unstable and already caused severe side effects in another victim. But the user does not care as long as it feels good, revealing how reckless the crew has become. Lavis notices the Hilka crest on the drug user's neck as the same tainted aura rises from him. That confirms the scent and the crest are appearing together again. The thug remains oblivious while the corruption on him becomes obvious to Lavis. Lavis steps out and directly asks whether they also got their tattoos from Jean Jae-hee. The gang has no idea who he is, but they immediately treat him as an intruder. Their leader tries to establish dominance by grabbing Lavis's face and demanding respect. Lavis's eye flares as he decides he has heard enough. He breaks the thug's grip before the man can react. In the same motion, he slams the leader down and drops him instantly. The rest of the gang freezes for a beat, shocked by how easily he did it. Their shock turns to rage as they demand to know who sent him. Lavis answers with another strike instead of words. He tears through multiple attackers at once, overwhelming them with brutal speed. One survivor realizes too late that they picked a fight with something monstrous. Even as they threaten to kill him, Lavis stands alone over the fallen leader without flinching. He cuts down another attacker before the man can land a blow. A single punch caves in the next thug's face and ends his charge. When a knife comes out, Lavis still controls the fight and keeps the attackers off balance. He slips under the stab and turns the assault back on the wielder. His movements stay precise and predatory, guided by more than human reflexes. He counters with a crushing kick that sends the knife attacker flying. Another thug falls before he can even understand the exchange. Only after clearing space does Lavis return to the question that matters and demand Jaehee's location. Behind him, the drugged blonde thug rises again, no longer acting human. Consumed by murderous frenzy, the man vows to kill Lavis. Lavis senses the sudden surge and realizes the thug's demonic energy has spiked. The drugged man lunges with feral aggression and far more power than before. Lavis immediately notices the change in movement and suspects the drug has amplified the man's body. The enhanced thug traps Lavis's foot, disrupting his rhythm for the first time. Lavis is knocked off balance and forced to the ground. The transformed attacker dives in for a finishing blow. With the distance closed, the threat becomes immediate and lethal. Lavis realizes too late that the opening is worse than he expected. He curses as the situation suddenly turns against him. The night hangs tense over the city as the conflict widens beyond a simple street fight. Elsewhere, Jaehee's side reports that Shaun's app is still unfinished and apologizes for the delay. Jaehee coldly notes he has heard that excuse before and makes it clear their patience is running out. The gang reports that they have caught the person who had been stealing from the blue ribbon supply. The captive immediately breaks down, admitting guilt and begging not to be killed. He desperately asks for one more chance and swears he will not fail again. The purple-haired enforcer answers only with cold silence as the others watch. He reaches for the blue roses that symbolize the stolen product. He strips the flowers from their container as if preparing a punishment. The bound thief realizes what is about to happen and freezes in terror. Even then, he keeps pleading for mercy. His panic turns into outright horror when he understands there will be none. Without changing expression, the enforcer raises the blue roses to use them as a weapon. He swings the flower bundle down on the helpless man with brutal force. The blow destroys one of the captive's eyes. The black-haired woman flinches, disturbed by the cruelty unfolding in front of her. Blinded and sobbing, the victim begs to be saved. The enforcer lifts the bloodied flowers again, intent on finishing the lesson. Blood splashes across the room as the beating continues. The man's screams confirm the punishment is still going on. He collapses in agony, still shrieking as the attack ends. Standing over the ruined body, the enforcer declares that there are no second chances here. He makes sure everyone present understands that failure will be punished the same way. The black-haired woman stays silent, shaken but obedient. Inside her head, she hears a harsher command pressing her to stop hesitating. The memory of the enforcer ordering her to bring him the goods resurfaces and tightens her fear. She quickly submits and says she understands. Later that night, the scene shifts away from the execution. Walking outside, the woman panics that she will be next if things keep going wrong. Unable to solve it herself, she frantically tries to reach Lim Shaun by phone. At last, the call starts ringing on his end. Lim Shaun notices the incoming call while working late at his computer. He senses something is wrong and stops what he is doing. He grabs the phone before it can keep ringing. Cautiously, he answers. Instead of the caller he expected, a bloodied man addresses him by name. The caller reveals he is at Jean Jaehee's tattoo shop, surrounded by bodies, and says the younger ones there are out of control. Lim Shaun is thrown off by the bizarre situation. A calm black-haired young man takes over the call and asks whether Lim Shaun knows Jean Jaehee. Hearing that name shocks Lim Shaun, and he demands to know how the stranger knows it. The caller explains that Jaehee's name was displayed on the phone and asks where he lives. Lim Shaun suspects the gang has already reached him, but the caller denies that. The young man says he came to find Jean Jaehee for his own reasons and confirms he is currently at the tattoo shop, though Jaehee is absent. That answer makes the caller pause when he notices something nearby. A strange white cat appears on the stairs and catches his attention. Back on the other end, Lim Shaun urgently warns Minho not to get involved and says he is coming immediately. Minho is distracted from the call by the cat's presence. He ends the call and focuses on the animal instead. The cat keeps playing innocently with the bell, as if it belongs there. Then it abruptly stops and turns toward him. Minho addresses the cat directly, convinced it is not ordinary. He grabs it without hesitation to test his suspicion. Holding it at eye level, he asks whether it can understand him. He forces the issue with demonic power, demanding that the creature make itself understandable. The cat instantly submits under the pressure. Minho notes that this is the third suspicious creature he has encountered in as many days. He demands to know what it really is. The cat reveals that it is a monitor from the demon realm sent to the human world to watch prisoners in secret. It explains that it had been observing Minho because he is supposed to be the demon Lavis, though it privately doubts how weak he seems. The monitor admits it does not know how he noticed it, and Minho bluntly answers that it was being far too obvious. He points out that a cat standing on two legs is not exactly subtle, and the creature sheepishly realizes its mistake. Deciding the monitor itself is not worth further interrogation, Minho shifts targets. He commands the creature's master to reveal himself. The order travels through the monitor's eyes like a magical summons. Far away, the command reaches a horned demon lounging in an ornate office. That demon, Bambi, is amused that Minho traced him so quickly. Minho immediately confronts Bambi and demands to know whether this whole setup was his doing. Bambi dodges the accusation with teasing familiarity instead of a straight answer. Minho presses him and asks what scheme he is running this time. Bambi keeps playing innocent and pretends he has done nothing. Minho drops the accusation for the moment and asks a more practical question. He wants to know whether a prisoner should normally be able to use demonic power in the human world. Through the monitor, Bambi answers that there are exceptions to every rule. He refuses to explain fully, saying Minho will understand soon enough. Minho instead brings up a stronger clue, the scent of the devouring flower lingering in the human world. He reminds Bambi that Bambi smelled it before too, and points out that this forbidden flower should not exist here at all. Bambi admits the demon realm authorities already know the Hilt family's influence has spread into the human world and that some of them survived. Minho realizes this means the Hilt family may still have active forces in the human world. Bambi confirms his concern with a pleased little laugh. He says the human world has become a breeding ground for overlapping conspiracies. Rather than worrying, Bambi decides this is convenient and tells Minho to wipe out the remaining Hilt forces while he is already there. Minho rejects the order and demands to know what Bambi is really talking about. He presses the monitor for more answers as Bambi stays evasive. The monitor can only meow helplessly once the connection becomes useless. Minho's patience snaps at being stonewalled. He curses the situation, frustrated by how little he has learned. The night hangs quiet again for a moment. Elsewhere, Jae-hee grows more anxious when Lim Shaun still does not answer. She fumes that he has ignored her at the worst possible time. Her irritation hardens into a grudge. Then her phone lights up with a call from Jae-hee's own number. At a gaming office, Lim Shaun answers, only to be urgently summoned by Jae-hee's side. Jae-hee orders her people to gather because they are going to capture Lim Shaun. The story briefly slips into Lim Shaun's memory. Back with the monitor, Minho asks whether it knows a lot about the human world. The creature says it receives regular updates and has decent detection abilities because it rotates among prisoners. Minho immediately orders it to return to its original form. When it hesitates, he threatens to do the transformation himself. Terrified, the creature obeys at once. The cat transforms into a tiny blue-haired demon girl. She presents herself meekly before Minho. Minho judges that she looks weak, but still assumes Bambi sent her for some purpose. He asks for her name. She admits she has never had one of her own. Minho names her street, telling her never to forget that he picked her up from the street. The gift of a name overwhelms her. She accepts it with shining devotion and thanks him for naming her. Minho immediately puts her to work and orders her to tell him everything she knows about the human world. As they begin, the city hums around them. At the same time, Lim Shaun gasps as a terrible realization hits him. He understands that Minho is in danger and regrets not refusing involvement from the start. He runs through the city as fast as he can. While running, he remembers the moment he won the app competition. Hearing his own name announced had felt like the start of a better future. Instead, a group led by Jae-hee intercepted him right after the win. They mocked the prize money as insignificant compared with what they wanted from him. Jae-hee declared that his real value was the app itself and ordered her men to take him. Lim Shaun was too stunned to resist. His celebratory flowers fell and shattered as he was seized. He was forced into their van and taken away. Inside, the purple-haired enforcer told him to stop trembling because this was only a business deal. They showed him a suitcase full of cash and demanded he hand over the app he created. Lim Shaun refused, insisting he had not built it to sell. The enforcer remained calm, already certain Lim Shaun would give in. He dismissed Lim Shaun's refusal as naive self-deception. Remembering that moment still fills Lim Shaun with dread, but the memory also hardens into determination. He pushes himself to run faster, desperate to stop Minho from meeting Jean Jae-hee. In his rush, he collides with someone on the street. He starts to apologize automatically. Then he looks up and realizes he has run straight into danger. Two of Jae-hee's men recognize him at once and are pleased they found him without searching. Lim Shaun freezes, knowing he is trapped. Jae-hee and the rest of the group close in around him. Jae-hee tells him his resistance is over. His cry is swallowed by the night as they seize him again. Back at their base, they inform him that from now on his only job is to manage the app for them, and failure means lifelong captivity. Lim Shaun tries to protest, but panic chokes the words. Jae-hee warns that they will be monitoring him constantly, so escape or sabotage will be useless. Under guard in front of a computer, he can only weakly deny what is happening. For a moment, he feels as if his life is already over. Outside the room, Jae-hee's men question whether such a timid-looking developer is really worth all this trouble, and explain that they need his work to distribute Blue Ribbon. They identify the app they stole from him as I'm Here. One of them mocks the app's purpose, unable to see how it could help their business. They sneer at the name as well, treating Lim Shaun's work like garbage. The app's logo appears on the screen as the system boots up. Its harmless-looking interface hides the value they intend to exploit. The purple-haired enforcer arrives to inspect the progress. He explains that Lim Shaun's app is the core of the Blue Ribbon project. Once they control the buyer's location data, they will be able to manipulate the market however they want. He clarifies that the app's real-time location sharing feature will be their main weapon for expanding the operation. Hearing that, the others realize they are finally close to launching Blue Ribbon on a much larger scale. The enforcer's quiet look suggests he is already thinking beyond simple sales and toward total control. A hidden figure confirms the name of the product they have chosen to unleash, Blue Ribbon. With quiet confidence, he decides the time has come to reveal Blue Ribbon to the world. At school, the scheme begins as students are urged to join a new app and add friends for rewards. The app is pitched as easy money, paying users cashback for every accepted friend request. The promise of quick profit spreads through the classroom and turns curiosity into a frenzy. Even hesitant students are pressured into joining, showing how easily the trend becomes coercive. As more girls check the promotion, they discover the sign-up event includes a free product. The reward turns out to be a diet supplement called Blue Ribbon, marketed as safe, certified, and attractive. Elsewhere, the people behind the operation are stunned by how explosively the user count rises in a single day. Youngwoo's side celebrates the campaign's success as proof that their rollout is working perfectly. But the mood shifts when the damaged tattoo shop is brought up again, and they admit the culprit still has not been identified. Youngwoo is baffled when he hears the security footage seems to show a bat at the scene. The footage only deepens the mystery, because the creature appears to stare directly into the camera. When Youngwoo demands other angles, his men can offer no better explanation. Another recording makes the intruder look like a rat instead, turning the evidence into nonsense. Faced with impossible footage, Youngwoo explodes in frustration at how little sense it makes. One of his men receives a message that abruptly interrupts the argument. Youngwoo is called away before he can keep raging about the failed investigation. The mention of a fresh blue ribbon shipment instantly redirects his attention to business. As evening falls, the story shifts to Ravi moving through the city with a new lead. Ravi arrives in his school uniform, calm and already in control of the situation. He finds Street hiding nearby and demands to know why she is lingering instead of reporting. Street nervously greets Lavis and admits she has been distracted, but Ravi pushes her back to the investigation he ordered. Trying to recover, Street insists she did manage to figure something important out. Her clue comes from a beaten victim found with several pieces of blue ribbon scattered beside him. Ravi confirms the candy carries the scent of the gnawing flower, linking the product to demonic corruption. From the victim's condition, he realizes humans have been consuming blue ribbon in order to awaken something inside themselves. That discovery alarms him, because the gnawing flower should not even exist anymore without a host. Street explains that the candy they were tracing is blue ribbon, now being sold to humans in many disguised forms like diet pills and supplements. Ravi immediately asks where the raw materials for all of it are coming from. Street admits she still cannot trace the source because the manufacturing process is being kept extremely secret. Ravi takes that as failure and coldly accuses her of bringing him nothing useful. Panicking, Street blurts out the one thing she did learn. The finished product is moving in such huge quantities that its demonic residue can lead them straight to the manufacturer. Ravi snaps that she should have followed that trail already instead of waiting to report it. When Street mentions Bambi told her to stay with Lavis, Ravi realizes she has been reporting to both of them. Street breaks down and pleads that she is only a lowly subordinate trying to obey two masters at once. Ravi forces the issue and demands she choose immediately whether her true loyalty belongs to him or to Bambi. Unable to answer, Street freezes under the pressure. Ravi tempts her with status and promises that if she chooses him, he will raise her above her current insignificance. The offer overwhelms Street, especially when she imagines the glamorous authority that comes with serving Lavis. She throws herself down and formally offers her body and blood to the darkness in submission. Satisfied, Ravi accepts her oath and begins the ritual of taking her in as his own subordinate. Street is stunned as the bond is sealed and Ravi claims her personally under the name Lavis Vindica. At that moment, Bambi's spirit appears, having clearly witnessed the transfer of loyalty. Ravi dismisses Bambi without hesitation, making it clear the matter is settled. With Street now under him, Ravi orders them to head for the place where blue ribbon is being gathered. By night, the two arrive at a remote container yard hidden beside the forest. Street confirms they have found the center of blue ribbon's concentrated demonic energy, and urges Ravi to open a container. She hesitates at the heavy chains and lock, unsure how to get inside. Ravi simply tells her to step aside. He smashes through the chained doors with brute force, proving how far above ordinary humans he stands. The container opens at last, exposing the shipment within. But the moment the doors part, Ravi senses something unexpected. A foul stench and choking air hit both of them, making Street gag and Ravi recoil. Dark energy spills from the container as the hidden cargo begins to reveal its true nature. Street realizes in horror that the entire shipment may be made of the thing they feared most. Ravi, shaken but focused, starts piecing together the truth. He recognizes that blue ribbon is not just tainted by the gnawing flower, but may actually be the flower itself in processed form. That realization leaves him grim and deeply alarmed. Far away in the demon realm, another conflict erupts as a mocking laugh echoes over a cliffside battlefield. Ravis is attacked by his uncle, who taunts him for being weak and unworthy. Ravis answers with open hatred, making it clear their family bond means nothing beside their enmity. His uncle attacks with murderous contempt, deciding that if Ravis cannot please him, he should die. Ravis is struck hard and driven back by the overwhelming difference in strength. The beating continues, leaving him bloodied and struggling to hold his ground. His uncle watches him coldly, still not taking the fight seriously. One savage blow sends Ravis flying off the cliff. As he falls, Ravis curses his uncle with all the rage he has left. From above, the uncle mocks him and asks whether this is really how he intends to die. He leaps down after him, intent on finishing the job personally. Ravis crashes into the ground below, and can barely rise through the pain. His uncle lands nearby and taunts him again, asking whether he is dead yet. Then the uncle notices something strange in the area around them. He discovers a hidden field of corpses overgrown with gnawing flowers and realizes this is where they have been concealed. Ravis stares in shock at the scale of the discovery. The sight forces him to understand that this is no isolated incident. A buried memory surfaces, recalling the ancient moment when light and darkness were split apart and opposing beings were born. Among those incompatible creations was a flower that belonged to either side and thrived precisely because it could not merge with any color. The memory shifts to primitive humans discovering the strange bloom. That flower first bloomed where the earliest humans gathered, feeding on the dead around them. By devouring fallen celestials and ruined demons alike, the gnawing flower developed a single consuming desire. Its true purpose was the annihilation of the world itself. The memory expands into a vision of the flower's catastrophic power spreading like a cosmic blaze. Ravis and his uncle once stood before that threat together, both witnesses to its danger. Back in the present, Ravi recalls that the flowers were supposed to have been completely eradicated in the demon realm. The huge stockpile before him makes that official history impossible to believe. He concludes that the flower must have first appeared in the human realm, not the demon realm. He reasons that the human world is a chaotic middle ground between light and darkness, making it the perfect birthplace for such a thing. Human records also claimed the flowers were wiped out long ago, but the evidence in front of him contradicts that too. If both realms believe the species was extinct while it survived in both, then someone must have engineered the deception. Street repeats the conclusion, and the implication begins to settle over them. A flashlight suddenly cuts through the darkness before they can think further. Ravi and Street turn toward the new disturbance. A group of intruders steps into view, and their leader makes it clear they have been listening for a while. Ravi recognizes them as the same people tied to the attack on the tattoo shop, and Jahe identifies him in return. Street quickly tells Ravi that the woman leading them is Jean Jahe. Jahe confronts Ravi over the destruction of her shop and demands to know how he found this place. Ravi ignores the accusation and asks whether Jahe is the one managing the Blue Ribbon operation, and she brazenly admits she is. He presses further, asking if she knows what raw materials are used to make the product. Jahe mocks the question as an attempt to steal her trade secrets. Ravi says it is not really his business to pry into her operation, but he also makes clear he cannot leave something this vile alone. Jahe warns her men that Young Mu will punish another failure, then reaches into her pocket. To force the issue, she hands out Blue Ribbon as a special reward to her subordinates. The men are thrilled and can hardly believe they are being given the drug for free. Jahe orders them to stop asking questions and swallow it immediately. They obey at once, greedily consuming the candy as the corruption begins to take hold. Seeing the danger, Ravi orders Street to stay hidden because her current power would only make her a burden in the fight. The men transform into snarling, hollow-eyed monsters under the drug's influence. Jahe sends the newly empowered addicts straight at Ravi. The discarded wrappers scatter across the ground as the attack begins. The transformed men rush him, and Ravi condemns them as fools too intoxicated to understand what is really controlling them. He invites them to come anyway, deciding to meet the assault head-on. The first attacker lunges with a knife, but Ravi intercepts him without losing his composure. A second man tries to blindside him, forcing Ravi to split his attention. Even so, Ravi counters with a brutal kick that sends one attacker reeling. Another strike comes from behind before he can finish the exchange. Ravi's demonic eye flares as his instincts sharpen in response to the danger. He slips under a stabbing arm and turns the attacker's momentum against him. A precise counterattack knocks the weapon aside and breaks the rhythm of the ambush. For a brief instant, Ravi realizes just how close the blade came. He seizes one assailant and uses him as a shield while twisting into another counter. Ravi's anger rises as the attackers scream and keep coming despite the punishment. The group crashes into him together, trying to overwhelm him with numbers. A heavy stomp comes down as one of the larger men tries to pin him in place. Ravi catches the attack and braces against the brute's weight instead of being crushed. From cover, Street can only watch in panic as Ravi is pressed from all sides. Jahe smiles, pleased to see her drugged pawns forcing him into a corner. The transformed men surge again, now fully committed to tearing Ravi apart. They hammer him from every direction, turning the fight into a chaotic mob assault. Ravi realizes they are much stronger than before, likely because this time they consumed a far larger dose. Accepting that ordinary restraint will not be enough, he changes tactics. He plants his foot and anchors himself, preparing a more decisive response. Ravi grabs one attacker by the head with crushing force. He slams the man down and releases a burst of power through the impact. The strike erupts into a cloud of tainted purple energy that engulfs the others. The transformed men begin choking and convulsing as the corrupted energy turns against them. Ravi hates the foul stench of the spreading corruption, but he recognizes it as something his own power can answer. His demonic energy surges more violently the more it reacts to the evil saturating the area. One of the men clutches his face in agony as Ravi's power starts breaking their momentum. Ravi follows through with a direct palm strike that crushes another attacker backward. He flips through the melee and uses the motion to drive a second opponent into the ground. Lightning-like demonic force gathers around his eye as he chains the attacks together. He slams one man down so hard that blood bursts from the impact. Another attacker tries to retaliate with a kick while Ravi is still moving. Ravi absorbs the blow and stays inside the man's guard instead of retreating. He sweeps through the group, dropping one body after another across the dirt. When another man grabs at him, Ravi traps the limb and turns the hold into an opening. With his face now darkened by power and his eye blazing, Ravi stomps the attacker down and dominates the battlefield. Even as one last crazed brute lunges in screaming for Ravi's death, Ravi remains locked in and ready to finish the fight. The black-haired boy opens the fight by crushing one thug's face and overwhelming him before the man can react. He keeps moving through the group alone, leaving another attacker reeling as the others realize brute force is failing. Without slowing down, he drives into a larger opponent and folds him over with raw power. As his strange eye flares, he commits fully to the assault and releases even more force. The big man is slammed into the ground, proving the boy can overpower enemies who should have outmatched him. Watching from the side, one of the gang members is shaken by how impossible this is for a single person to do. The boy lowers his head for a moment, gathering himself as the unnatural power in his eye crackles. The witness's fear deepens as the boy's presence starts to feel less human than monstrous. A dark, ghost-like aura rises behind him, turning the battlefield into something supernatural. The terrified onlooker can only wonder if the boy is some kind of ghost rather than a normal fighter. His glowing eye becomes the center of that inhuman pressure, confirming that something beyond ordinary strength is at work. Elsewhere, a formal ballet competition is underway. A young ballerina named Yuri performs alone on stage before a full audience. Her poised entrance suggests a major chance to prove herself. At the same time, Yuri's mother is reminded that Yuri is the daughter of the famous Kan Hyun-ju. The speaker flatters her by saying Yuri's talent was enough to place her in a top ballet company. Two men enter the private room and identify the woman as one of their important clients. She immediately pushes back, furious that strangers have barged into such an exclusive place. The pink-haired man answers her contempt with mock politeness and presents a bulk delivery of blue ribbon. The woman is caught off guard by the sheer amount and by the fact that they brought it here in person. Seeing the jar, she recognizes exactly what they are talking about and grows uneasy. The dealer reassures her that his side controls production and distribution, so she should stop worrying. Even so, she hesitates and finally asks whether what she has done is truly safe. The dealer mocks her for asking that only after she has already gone this far. He reminds her that she already fed plenty of the drug to her daughter before sending Yuri onto the stage. On stage, Yuri's body begins to react violently even as she tries to continue dancing. She forces herself through the routine on point, but the strain is clearly no longer under control. Watching from the room, her mother realizes too late that something is going wrong and calls out to her. Yuri's face and body show severe side effects as the drug overtakes her mid-performance. Her arm jerks unnaturally, signaling that the performance is turning into a medical disaster. The dealer coolly notes that the mother must have been in a hurry and overdid it. As Yuri loses control completely, he demands to know how much of the drug her mother fed her. The mother panics and begs Yuri to stop, but she can no longer reach her. Yuri's body twists through one last distorted movement instead of a graceful step. She crashes to the stage floor in front of everyone. The audience erupts in confusion, unable to understand why the dancer suddenly collapsed. From the hall, the scene looks like a public catastrophe rather than an accident anyone can explain. Back in the room, the mother is horrified as the consequences become undeniable. She turns on the dealers in rage, accusing them of lying when they promised there would be no side effects. The pink-haired man coldly answers that safety only applies when the recommended dosage is followed. Looking at Yuri's ruined condition, he declares that there is no hope of saving her now. He tells the mother that if she wants Yuri to stay alive, she will have to keep feeding her false satisfaction. He makes the trap explicit. Yuri will no longer be able to live even a day without blue ribbon. The mother breaks down, not over guilt, but over the money and effort she poured into making Yuri a success. The dealer smiles, pleased by how completely she has been cornered. He leaves her bent over in despair with the drug jar sitting between them like a contract already signed. Then his phone rings with a call from Jin Jae-hee. He checks the screen, mildly annoyed by the interruption. At first he does not understand what he is being shown. On the video call, Jae-hee apologizes nervously to Youngmoo. The black-haired boy steps into view and directly asks if Youngmoo is the one making blue ribbon. Youngmoo is stunned that the caller has reached him so directly. The boy confirms that he has found the right person. Youngmoo demands a better look at him, sensing something important. He adjusts the phone to study the boy more carefully. After recognizing the urgency, he abruptly excuses himself from his current business. The story returns to the nighttime clearing where the earlier fight took place. Standing among the bodies he has dropped, the boy begins explaining why humans fall into drugs at all. He says addicts are arrogant enough to believe they can use poison without becoming dependent on it. In his view, they cling to drugs because they have nothing real to believe in. His blue-haired companion interrupts to point out someone approaching. Jae-hee recognizes the newcomer and calls Youngmoo's name in alarm. Facing the arriving men, the boy realizes the tattoo shop incident also led back to Youngmoo. Youngmoo answers with calm confidence, as if he has finally found the person he wanted. The boy dismisses him as trash and demands to know where he got the object in his hand. Youngmoo replies that such a thing should have been impossible for an ordinary human to obtain. That wording makes Youngmoo pause and reconsider what kind of being he is facing. He starts to suspect the boy may not be human at all. The scene abruptly shifts to Youngmoo's past, in a filthy room littered with pills and empty containers. As a child, Youngmoo found his addict father collapsed on the floor and still begging for more drugs. He tried to rouse him, still calling him father despite the neglect. The man looked dead enough to terrify him. Youngmoo wondered if his father had finally died. He saw only a junkie who had wasted his life and seemed to be ending it the same way. For a brief moment, the boy considered what his own future would become if the man really died there. But his true fear surfaced immediately. Without his father, he would lose access to the drugs he craved. Even the dying man's body became secondary to Youngmoo's panic over how he would get another fix. At that moment, the father's eyes lit with an unnatural purple glow. The boy froze as the impossible unfolded in front of him. When the father moved again, Youngmoo realized he had not simply come back to life. A shadowy being appeared over the father and asked whether this man's death truly brought Yangmu sorrow. Yangmu could only stare, trying to understand what was speaking to him. The entity offered a bargain, saying it could return the man if that was what Yangmu's sorrow desired. Yangmu rejected the premise outright, laughing at the idea that he would mourn such a father. He admitted the truth, he did not want his father back, only the drugs his father provided. The entity accepted that answer without judgment. Instead, it told him to feed his father's corpse to a strange creature called the gnawing flower. It promised that by doing so, Yangmu would form a covenant and gain what he desperately wanted. The being added a condition of loyalty, warning him against betrayal or denying the flower. Its command was simple and absolute: kill anyone who did. The flower itself bloomed in his hand like a living contract. Yangmu accepted it with ecstatic devotion. Armed with the flower, he turned that new power on his father's body. Back in the present, Yangmu bristles at being called a mere human. The black-haired boy notes that such certainty means Yangmu must worship something. Yangmu confirms it and says that being gave him a new life. The boy immediately understands that Yangmu made a pact with a demon. He pities both Yangmu and the being he serves, whatever trash they have chosen to believe in. Yangmu takes that contempt as an unforgivable insult to his god. He orders his men to seize the boy at once. The blue-haired girl complains that another fight is starting before the last one even settled. The boy decides to stop playing around and end the confrontation quickly. He vanishes into motion before the others can follow. Elsewhere, Yuri is being rushed away in an ambulance. Even with his daughter dying, her mother clutches the drug jar and thinks first about how profitable the launch has become. At the street level, the app tied to the drug is spreading blue ribbon rapidly among students. Dealers celebrate that the app is making nationwide expansion easy. Their greed grows so quickly that they start joking about becoming a global operation. Other associates boast that Yangmu has already opened routes into China and Japan, treating him like a criminal prodigy. But the young man behind the app sits in silence, unable to share their excitement. He realizes with horror that the system he built is the reason the drug is spreading this fast. Overwhelmed by guilt, he silently begs for someone to stop what he started. Back in the clearing, one of Yangmu's men is cut down before he can matter. Jae-hee points out that the enemy is no longer acting like a normal human at all. The boy asks calmly when the real opponent plans to step in. Yangmu answers only with a hardening expression. Inside his head, the demon's command repeats, pressing him to deny nothing and kill. That order takes hold, swallowing his hesitation. He tightens his hand around blue ribbon, linking the drug to the power driving him. Submitting completely, he vows obedience to Lord Bauer Hilt. Jae-hee desperately warns that this is no ordinary high schooler and may be tied to the creators of the new drug. The boy is briefly thrown by the suggestion that he himself could be mistaken for part of the drug operation. Yangmu uses that instant to launch a direct attack. The boy senses the strike at the last possible moment. He blocks, but the impact proves Yangmu is far stronger than the earlier thugs. Yangmu keeps pressing with relentless speed and force. The boy recognizes that this opponent is on an entirely different level. Yangmu demands to know how the boy can keep blocking and asks if he too received a blessing from the same power. He reveals the depth of his fanaticism by insisting that the being behind his power is his god alone. While defending himself, the boy pieces it together from the flower and the foul aura surrounding Yangmu. He names the demon outright as Bauer Hilt. Hearing that name from someone else shocks Yangmu and enrages him further. The boy uses the opening to mock both Yangmu and the pathetic god he chose to trust. Yangmu explodes, screaming that no one may insult the being who took pity on him. The boy twists the knife by saying pity is exactly what Bauer Hilt must have felt for someone so pathetic. That humiliation breaks whatever restraint Yangmu had left. He throws himself into a frenzied assault, trying to crush the boy with sheer violence. Even under the barrage, the boy keeps his guard and notes bitterly that Bauer Hilt has risen high while hiding. A sudden flash of blood and violence triggers a memory of the demon's past rampage. He recalls a time when Bauer Hilt slaughtered others while one man fled alone. That fleeing survivor was someone the boy has not forgotten. Remembering it, the boy's expression turns savage with recognition and hatred. He accuses Bauer Hilt of living like a king now and demands to know where the demon is hiding. Yangmu can only answer with blind fury, defending the demon's name. Driven by worship and rage, he surges forward with even more monstrous force. The boy feels the foul stench of the demon's influence intensify around him. Yangmu declares that anyone who insults Bauer Hilt will die by his own hands. He locks onto the boy at close range, trying to overpower him directly. With his grip tightening and his eyes blazing, Yangmu commits to killing him outright. The clash peaks as Yangmu hurls the boy through the air, ending the exchange with brute force rather than control. The possessed test subject drives Lavis down and opens the fight with a brutal, overpowering assault. Pinned beneath him, Lavis realizes he is in immediate danger and searches for a way to survive. The attacker, consumed by demonic energy, raises another killing blow with no restraint left. As the attack continues, Lavis recognizes that the creature now carries both the blue ribbon and Boar's influence. The fused subject claims everything for himself, revealing a mind overtaken by greed and possession. Lavis understands the subject has lost all reason and truly intends to murder him. The berserk subject roars and slams into Lavis again, forcing a pained gasp from him. Watching from hiding, the blue-haired demon girl panics and fears Lavis is about to die. The monster presses the advantage and mocks Lavis for reaching his limit in a human body. She desperately thinks that if Lavis still had access to his true demonic power, this would not be happening. Her desperation turns into a wish that Lavis could somehow use his old abilities again. Meanwhile, the attack keeps coming, leaving Lavis buried under relentless force. Elsewhere, a horned observer reports that the gnawing flower test subject has completely fused and exceeded expectations. He coldly concludes that Lavis may really die this time, and with him, his soul could be erased forever. Another demon beside him brings up Lavis's deepest hatred, hinting that it may matter more than strength. The observer dismisses the question with dry sarcasm, while the other demon teases him for showing his thoughts too clearly. The observer falls silent, annoyed by the interruption. The seated demon answers with one word that matters to Lavis most: filth. He explains that Lavis is a misophobe who cannot endure anything dirty. Back in the fight, Lavis suddenly catches the attacker's hand instead of being crushed by it. Bleeding and furious, Lavis fixates on the filth covering the subject and repeats the word like a trigger. The attacker is thrown off by Lavis's sudden change in demeanor. Lavis snaps that he can no longer tolerate the foul stench coming from his enemy. His grip tightens with new force, turning disgust into power. The subject cries out as Lavis crushes and twists his hand. For the first time, the attacker is forced back and realizes the balance has shifted. Lavis focuses on his left hand, deciding that even partial recovery will be enough. He feels as if his original demonic hand has returned, confirming that some of his old power is awakening. He steadies himself in silence, testing that restored sensation. The attacker, now sweating, senses that Lavis has become something far more dangerous. Lavis forms a blade of demonic energy so he can fight without directly touching the filthy body. He closes in at once, intent on ending the battle quickly. With a sudden burst of speed, Lavis overwhelms the subject before he can react. The attacker is stunned that a human body could produce this level of power. The blue-haired girl erupts with relieved excitement as Lavis turns the fight around. Lavis coldly repeats the insult, rejecting the idea that a mere human could be beneath him. He drives a vicious punch into the subject's face. The fused subject is hurled away and crashes across the ground. A nearby woman recoils in fear as Lavis's violence spills outward. Spitting blood, the subject demands to know what Lavis really is. Lavis answers by telling him to stop speaking with that filthy mouth and hits him again. The subject is battered backward under Lavis's relentless blows. Watching from afar, the observer notes Lavis's abrupt change with interest. The seated demon explains that the awakened test subject's stench must have pushed Lavis over the edge. He adds that getting close was difficult for Lavis precisely because he hates filth more than anything. That extreme disgust, he reveals, triggers an awakening that lets Lavis draw on a portion of his true power. The observer is shaken by the implication that Lavis can still use his old abilities in a human body. He protests that even with the demonic bloodstone, a sinner's body should not be able to wield demonic power properly. The other demon dismisses that logic and reminds him that Lavis is no ordinary case. He declares with pride that Lavis is exceptional no matter what anyone says. Then he reveals the truth behind Lavis's temperament. Lavis takes after him. Back in the fight, the subject is slammed hard against the wall, completely overpowered. Lavis approaches and tells him he is lucky to have survived this long. He clarifies that the only reason the subject still lives is because this human body should not commit murder. The subject cannot accept defeat and insists that someone blessed directly by Boar should not lose like this. Desperate, he braces himself and searches for any opening to escape or counter. He clings to Boar's blue ribbon as his last source of confidence. Lavis immediately seizes that hand and warns him not to try anything foolish. He promises to finish the fight without killing him. Lavis shifts into position for a disabling strike rather than an execution. At that moment, the observer suddenly intercepts him, blocking the blow with his bare arm. Lavis is briefly startled that someone else has entered the fight. The observer counters by smashing the subject's head down with overwhelming force. He keeps hold of the subject's arm, controlling him completely. With a precise motion, he tears the blue ribbon free from the subject's hand. The fused subject is left standing in a grotesque, broken state as the stolen power is stripped away. His body convulses and gapes in agony as the fusion destabilizes. Lavis lowers his guard slightly, watching the collapse with measured calm. He notes with relief that the unbearable stench is finally fading. Elsewhere, the app's creator sees the system output and realizes this result is wrong. He panics at the screen, understanding something has gone terribly off course. His thoughts return to the school environment that traps students in forced relationships they cannot escape. He remembers how survival there often means pretending to like others just to avoid becoming prey. He contrasts that with the cruelty of openly hating someone without any need for closeness. He recalls that he created the app because he wanted to help people find the relationships they truly needed. He insists to himself that he never made it for crime or exploitation. Driven by that conviction, he frantically starts deleting the app from the system. The deletion process begins as code and data are torn down. Outside, the thugs notice their phones and systems malfunctioning and realize something is happening inside. The creator urges the deletion to finish before they can stop him. He barricades the room with a chair to buy a few more seconds. The men outside see the barricade and understand he is trying to keep them out. They pound on the door and order someone to break in immediately. Inside, the creator commits himself to permanently deleting the app no matter what happens to him. He begs the process to finish as the alarm blares and the door strains under attack. The gang smashes through the glass and forces entry. One of them leaps inside first, furious that the creator defied them. They rush him and beat him before he can get away from the computer. Seeing the deletion bar already moving, they realize he really is destroying the app. Panic spreads among them because if their superior arrives and finds this mess, they expect to die. Curled on the floor, the creator resolves to endure the beating until the deletion completes. He grabs a shard of broken glass, searching for any desperate way to keep them back. Even while being kicked, he prepares to fight with whatever he can reach. He scrambles through the shattered room and spots a fire extinguisher. He seizes it as his last available weapon. Bruised and terrified, he turns with a desperate plan. He screams that the app belongs to him and denounces the men who stole it. Then he blasts the extinguisher, filling the room with choking white spray and blinding everyone. The smoke buys him time while the deletion bar keeps advancing. The progress finally surges toward completion. Seeing that, the creator realizes he has succeeded. But one thug charges through the haze and attacks him anyway. The extinguisher is knocked aside as the creator is slammed to the floor. The gang leader orders the others to restrain him before he can do anything else. Coughing in the chemical cloud, the others struggle to obey. The creator fights back with both hands at the leader's throat, refusing to surrender. As he is choked and fading, he thinks this is the furthest he can go. The leader sneers at him as if crushing him is inevitable. A cold voice cuts through the smoke, outraged that anyone dared touch Lavis's attendant. The gang leader turns, suddenly aware that someone far more dangerous has arrived. A hand reaches through the haze toward him before he can react. The other thugs also sense the new presence and freeze in alarm. They recognize the newcomer as Seongjin and immediately lose their nerve. Seongjin casually seizes the gang leader by the head and lifts him off the creator. The remaining thugs can only stare, unable to understand what they are seeing. Another attacker lunges, but Seongjin's eye flares as he moves to intercept. In a blur, he strikes through both men with effortless precision. They are thrown aside together, completely outclassed. Seongjin declares that he will not allow anyone to take what belongs to him, even at the cost of his life. The creator looks up at him in disbelief, calling his name as rescue finally arrives. A memory surfaces of the day the creator first showed Seongjin the app he was building. He had explained it as a platform where compatible people could gather, share locations, and even form study groups. Seongjin had been genuinely impressed that he created something so useful. When Seongjin noticed the red button, he asked what extra function it served. The creator admitted he added it because he still regretted failing to help when Seongjin was once dragged away by Taiwa's gang. Unable to find Seongjin back then, he built a feature meant to prevent that helplessness from happening again. He explained that pressing the red button would reveal the user's location only to trusted friends. And he promised that if anything like that ever happened again, he would come help no matter what. Seongjin understood that the app was never just software to him, but a way to protect the people he cared about. He accepted the app warmly and said he would install it too. Back in the present, the creator tearfully calls Seongjin's name. Seongjin shows him the app on his phone and confirms that the emergency signal came from him. The creator realizes Seongjin really received the signal he once designed in hope. The app's simple screen becomes proof that his effort reached the one person he wanted to protect. Overwhelmed, the creator breaks down in tears. He thanks Seongjin through sobs for coming. Still kneeling amid the smoke and fallen thugs, he repeats his gratitude with all the relief he has left. Elsewhere in the alley, the blue-haired demon restrains a woman who struggles and demands to be released. The demon girl keeps her under control, refusing to let her interfere. When Lavis and the creator arrive, the demon girl immediately calls out to him. The captive woman panics, but Lavis dismisses her and says he no longer needs those people. He then notes that all the devouring flowers the enemy had prepared seem to be gone. A sudden explosion and rising flames interrupt the moment, signaling a new disaster at the battlefield. Emergency crews rush in and begin containing the fire before it can spread. As responders secure the area, the scale of the aftermath becomes clear. Among the chaos, injured people lie scattered near the burning site. One responder notices survivors or suspects among the wreckage and reacts in shock. The fused subject, horribly damaged but not dead, is shown slumped against a tree in the firelight. Lavis, the creator, and the blue-haired demon leave together through the night, moving on from the ruined scene. The creator looks back in silence, shaken by everything that has happened and by the bond that just saved him. A blue-haired demon girl waits in high spirits, unaware of the tension building around her. Lavis begins to suspect that Uncle Vamber has been using him for his own ends. He hardens his resolve and decides he will confront that manipulation when he returns. Back in the city, concern shifts to whether the injured boy should be taken to a hospital. Miho treats Lavis's injuries while Lavis dismisses the pain as merely irritating. Miho admits he only hit the emergency signal as a precaution and is surprised Lavis truly came for him. Lavis starts to explain, then realizes what Miho is referring to. When Lavis tries to pass off his arrival as chance, the blue-haired demon cuts him off before he can lie. She presses him to admit that coming to Miho was not an accident at all. Elsewhere, Lavis and the demon girl force a captured thug to guide them toward the gang's hideout under threat of ending him like the last one. The thug assumes Lavis is going this far because Lim Shaun is his friend. Lavis learns the gang also has Lim Shaun and realizes that explains his absence from school. When the thug demands the real reason, Lavis simply triggers the thug's panic alarm. The alarm confirms the thug has been trying to call for help. The demon girl insists Lavis must never reduce this to coincidence, because that is not how human bonds work. She challenges him to admit he is not just passing through the human world for a year or two. She points out that Miho already sees Lavis as someone who came to save him. Miho then asks who the strange companion is, and Lavis casually introduces Street as his subordinate. That word jolts Miho, who starts connecting Lavis's sudden changes to something far more dangerous. He confronts Lavis directly, saying his impossible transformation and bizarre subordinate make no normal sense. The realization terrifies him before he can even finish the thought. Miho convinces himself Lavis must have joined some criminal organization, exactly what he had feared. Lavis decides he cannot keep hiding the truth any longer. He openly reveals that he is Lavis Vindica, son of the great demon king from the demon realm. Miho is left completely stunned by the confession. Lavis matter-of-factly says that since Miho knows now, he will have to help with Lavis's work from here on. Miho rejects the claim as obvious nonsense. He tries to steady himself, but the absurdity keeps piling up. His panic spikes again when the cat in the room suddenly demands attention. Too tired to explain himself, Lavis orders Street to handle the explanation. Street calmly prepares to speak to Miho directly. The fact that the cat talks sends Miho into full-blown shock. His mind nearly shuts down under the weight of it all. At the same time, another thread of the story resumes with a battered drug user on the move. After the fire, the surviving criminals decide to scatter, insisting they destroyed everything first. One badly beaten addict sees that he nearly killed the person who humiliated him. As police secure the scene, a hooded figure approaches unnoticed. The figure silences an officer before he can challenge him. The officer's resistance vanishes at a touch. He collapses while the hooded intruder reaches the police vehicle. The intruder, Lord Banby, pities the addict's miserable state. The addict recognizes Banby and begs for more power so he can kill the one he hates. Banby decides to take him away for a private talk. The authorities remain focused on the fire, unaware the real threat has slipped past them. Detective Cha learns that even the dealers have already been subdued and wonders who intervened first. She discovers the operation involved Blue Ribbon, a drug that had even passed official approval. Realizing it has already spread widely among students, she is furious at the scale of the crime. Then a sudden pain in her head hints that something supernatural has brushed past the scene. Even while reeling, she orders the others to check the police van immediately. Inside, they find the prisoner gone. Detective Cha realizes the addict has vanished right under their noses. The trail leads away from the scene toward an abandoned building in the mountains. Inside that ruin, the addict kneels before Banby and begs for one more chance. He promises that if Banby gives him more drugs, he can kill the enemy he failed to defeat. Banby answers by dwelling on the value of the flowers the addict burned. He treats those flowers with intimate, almost sacred obsession. Banby reveals the true horror of his work. He painstakingly gathered human bodies to cultivate those flowers. To him, the addict's betrayal proves humans are worthless and untrustworthy. The addict keeps begging, still obsessed with revenge and more drugs. Banby's patience finally snaps. He attacks with brutal precision instead of granting the request. Banby destroys the addict's eyes with flower growth, turning his own obsession against him. The addict collapses screaming in agony. Banby coldly reminds him of the blood oath he once swore. He demands the addict prove his final loyalty through the very flowers growing from his body. Back in the city, the night continues as if nothing has changed. Meanwhile, a desperate woman searches an office for a hidden coin wallet, determined to survive by fleeing with it. She cannot find it and starts to panic. She explains she went to the office only to find police already there. A knife-wielding man appears, saying he came just in case she would return. She recoils, unable to understand what he has become. The man blames her for what was done to his forehead and begs for more blue ribbon. She realizes he overdosed on his own and calls him insane. She grabs broken wood to defend herself. As she swings, she is already cursing the nightmare closing in on her. He counters with the knife and cuts into her side. Both of them crash apart, wounded and shaken. Even half delirious, he keeps demanding more blue ribbon. The drug overwhelms him, twisting his body and mind into something monstrous. Pinned by pain and the knife wound, she realizes she may not escape. She breaks down, terrified that she is about to die here. At that moment, dark demonic energy begins to gather around the transformed attacker. The energy swells as another presence enters the room. The newcomer notes that if the transformation continues, Lavis will hate the aftermath even more. The wounded woman begs the unknown figure to save her. A blonde demon refuses, saying he lacks the strength to save her and that if she is fated for hell, she should accept it. The woman can only cling to that word in despair. The demon offers a cruel compromise. Her body can remain here even if her soul falls. He then opens a path back to the demon realm. In the demon realm, Barkin is welcomed by his elder sister, who has clearly been investigating his schemes. She accuses him of plotting ever since Lavis was sent to the human world. Her anger sharpens when she realizes he has been using her son. Barkin admits she has figured it out. He insists there is no need to worry because Lavis has grown and because he secretly placed a blood demon stone inside him. That revelation horrifies her, since it means the great demon king's heir is alone in the human world carrying a dangerous power. Barkin tells her to trust Lavis more. She answers that her fear is not Lavis himself, but the unstable direction of the entire world. She warns that the balance between opposing forces is so fragile that even a tiny crack could bring everything down. Barkin argues that Lavis is stronger than she thinks and has inherited his aggression and overwhelming combat talent. She strikes him and warns that if even a fragment of Lavis's soul is harmed, both of them are finished. Barkin complains about being treated like a child and jokes about eliminating older sisters, only worsening the argument. Banby timidly tries to calm them, but neither sibling is willing to back down. Their chaos makes Banby marvel that Lavis survived growing up around them at all. The story then returns to the quiet apartment where Miho is still processing everything. Miho finally asks the obvious question and confirms for himself that Lavis really is a demon. Lavis answers plainly that humans do call his kind that, while Street delights in hearing him say us. Now terrified about his own fate, Miho asks whether knowing this means he is doomed to hell after death, and Lavis replies that hell is effectively the demon realm, and that Miho would be safe there with him. Lavis even declares himself Miho's master as the demon king's heir, which only makes Miho reject the offer more desperately. Lavis threatens Bambi with grotesque revenge if Miho ever tries to go back on him. Miho pushes past the fear and asks the question that matters most to him now. He wants to know what happened to the real Miho whose body Lavis is using. Street answers bluntly that the original Miho was destined to die anyway, and only such bodies can officially serve as vessels. That explanation devastates Miho, who cannot accept that his friend was fated for death. Lavis tries to comfort him in his own warped way by saying they will all meet again in the demon realm eventually. Miho takes that as confirmation that he is bound for the demon realm too, while Lavis and Street casually insist it is actually a pleasant place. Street's gleeful description of a homeland full of blood and screams completely destroys that reassurance. Lavis tells Miho not to worry yet and to keep treating him the same as before, as long as he keeps the secret. Shaking and overwhelmed, Miho agrees. With that settled, Lavis decides to leave despite his lingering pain, and Street eagerly follows. The night carries them toward another destination. Lavis privately wonders if he overused the Bloodstone's power, because his head is starting to hurt. He arrives at a home where a cheerful girl surprises him with a birthday celebration. She explains that she and her mother spent all night making the cake for him. She excitedly dresses him for the occasion and says their parents will be home soon. She insists on taking a birthday selfie with him. As they pose, she notices the injuries on his face. She brushes them off with a smile, saying she only stepped in when some men were harassing an old woman, but Lavis quietly judges her kindness as unnecessary. He finds it strange that someone weak would still help others. The girl ignores his coldness and simply offers him cake. She feeds him a bite before he can refuse. The sweetness overwhelms Lavis, who has never tasted anything like it. He is furious at how deeply the taste affects him. That moment is interrupted when the girl's father storms in, enraged after being humiliated during his campaign and vowing to kill those responsible. He turns that rage on his own staff, blaming them for failing to stop the incident. His wife tries to restrain him, but he is too consumed by anger. He violently throws her off. The daughter finally shouts back, begging him to stop because her mother did nothing wrong. Her defiance catches him off guard. Instead of calming down, he lashes out at the family for celebrating while he was being attacked in public. He knocks the daughter aside and turns the room into a scene of fear. Then he smashes the birthday cake away, snarling that a real father would never tolerate such disrespect. The cake explodes across the room. The mother pleads with him again, reminding him that today is Miho's birthday. He dismisses even that, treating the occasion as meaningless. Lavis says nothing, but his silence turns dangerous. The father finally notices the murderous stillness in him. Lavis condemns the house itself as suffocating. The father retreats a step as the atmosphere changes. Lavis looks at the ruined cake and the wrecked celebration in cold disbelief. His fury crystallizes around one thought. The father dared to destroy something Lavis had already claimed as his. A grieving mother blames herself for what happened, but her daughter refuses to accept that guilt and clings to her instead. Nearby, Minho watches their pain and quietly absorbs how badly this family has been cornered. His sympathy hardens into contempt for the man responsible, whom he judges as unbearably arrogant. The story shifts to the candidate's side as evening settles over the city. Young Tae-sik rages that Wai Young-moo has cut contact and stopped paying, leaving him unable to secure political favors. He fumes that even a single staged photo with Assemblyman Park now requires bribery he cannot currently provide. His subordinate can only promise to track Wai Young-moo down and contain the damage. Tae-sik vents that his campaign is humiliatingly dependent on corrupt people who treat him like trash. That frustration is interrupted when an aide bursts in with news that a video involving Minha is exploding online. Tae-sik demands an explanation and immediately orders the footage shown to him. The video reveals Minha stepping into a street altercation and warning the bullies that she recorded everything. Instead of backing down, the thugs turn on her, but she fiercely condemns them for harassing an elderly woman. As the bullies retreat, the candidate watches the scene with growing interest rather than concern. The footage ends with Minha checking on the old woman she defended, making her look kind and brave. Tae-sik instantly realizes this viral act of compassion can be weaponized by publicly claiming Minha as his daughter. The idea pleases him at once. He decides the scandal can be turned into a perfect campaign image instead of a problem. Elsewhere, another powerful group notices Minha too, but for a far darker reason. Han Yongju summons her children, Han Young and Hansu, to look at the girl now on screen. When asked how such a girl appeared so suddenly, Han Young identifies Minha as their mother's beautiful new vessel. The image of Minha smiling among classmates only deepens their fascination with her. Han Yongju teases Han Young about jealousy, but the daughter coldly denies any attachment. Han Yongju explains that Minha's face matches one she once deliberately purchased and crafted. She openly declares that Minha is meant to become her next body. To her, human bodies are disposable shells that age, wrinkle, and lose value too quickly. Finding Minha feels like destiny because she sees the girl as a flawless replacement. Hansu and Han Young both admire Minha as if she were a beautiful object rather than a person. Hansu's admiration turns cruel as he wonders what it will sound like when that pretty doll finally breaks. Back in the human world, Minha's viral fame is repackaged into sensational news that identifies her as the mayoral candidate's daughter. Public reaction swings in Taesik's favor, with comments praising his parenting and boosting his support. His staff reports that the story will even reach the major evening news, making the momentum impossible to ignore. Taesik smugly decides the daughter he once dismissed has suddenly become politically useful. He orders his team to keep manufacturing good publicity around Minha through volunteer work and similar appearances. Before they can move on, a new opportunity arrives when Enox Entertainment reaches out. The company's CEO, Han Yongju, claims she became interested after seeing Minha's video. The name Enox catches Taesik's attention immediately. He revels in the thought that Minha can now enrich him in yet another way. Meanwhile, Minho learns that his stepfather is not just abusive but also a serious mayoral candidate. When asked about the family, his friend admits Minho rarely spoke about them in detail. What he did know is that Minho cared deeply for Minha and treated her with real affection. That word lingers with Minho and reshapes how he thinks about his own role. His demonic companions noisily remind him that power depends on protecting what matters to him, whether he likes it or not. Minho falls silent as that lesson lands harder than he wants to admit. A new thought begins to form in him. As they walk through the alley, he brushes off the interruption and returns to the larger problem. A messenger creature explains that Bambi was absent but left a note instead. The note praises Ravis, mocks him, and sends him a gift while urging him to make use of it. Ravis explodes in anger at being manipulated and vows revenge on Bambi. But the conversation quickly returns to the human threat now rising in public view. Minho's friend warns that with current public opinion, Taesik may genuinely win the mayoral election. Minho rejects the idea of such a man ruling a city, though his friend reframes it as managing rather than ruling. Even so, Minho senses the same greedy nature he recognizes from a gluttonous demon. He asks whether young Taesik could be a Cinyras that somehow crossed into the human world. The cat familiar explains that Cinyras is a gluttonous underworld demon hated even by other demons for endless consumption. Still, the familiar insists Taesik is only human and should not outrank the demons who actually govern the district. Minho remains suspicious and concludes that if someone like Taesik can rise so high, the human world is rotten too. He ends the tangent by dryly warning Street not to eat so much that he turns into a Cinyras himself. Then his attention returns to the immediate danger. Taesik is clearly preparing to exploit Minha. Thinking of both Minho and Minha together, he begins connecting the siblings' fates. Night falls as he heads home with that concern unresolved. At the apartment, Minho walks in just as Minha's future is being decided without her. Han Yongju flatters the family by saying Minha is so beautiful she could debut quickly as the center of a new idol group. Minha's mother hesitates because her daughter is still a student and never asked for this life. Han Yongju dismisses that concern and frames Minha's beauty as a talent that would be wrong to waste. Taesik apologizes for his wife's reluctance, making clear he values the deal more than her opinion. Han Yongju smoothly reassures the mother while promising that Enox can balance school and idol activities. Hansu adds that modern idols can still succeed academically, but his tone makes Minho instantly distrust him. Minho studies the boy and senses something deeply wrong beneath the polished surface. Taesik, already sold, reduces the whole matter to signing a contract. Han Yongju presents the agreement as something that will elevate both Minha's career and Taesik's political future. Minha sits in silence, visibly shrinking under the pressure gathering around her. Han Yongju notices Minho and introduces herself warmly, pretending this is a normal family meeting. Minho answers only with a cold stare. Taesik snaps at him to show proper respect to the powerful guest. Han Yongju waves it off, but her indulgence only makes the imbalance in the room clearer. Minho remembers again that the real Minho cherished Minha, and that memory pushes him to act. Far away in the demon realm, an uncle figure reassures Ravis that he will always stand with him. Ravis rejects the sudden sentiment, uncomfortable with emotional support. The uncle recalls warning him long ago that many hostile forces would covet the ruler's power. He had told Ravis that as heir to the throne, he would eventually need allies and a faction of his own. Young Ravis had arrogantly insisted he needed only his own strength. His uncle laughed, and predicted that one day Ravis would meet people he could not help caring about. Those bonds, he said, would change him before he even realized it. Ravis had no answer to that prophecy. Unable to argue with the feeling, he chose to bury it under training instead. Back in the apartment, Minho places a hand on Minha's shoulder and calls her by name. He quietly asks whether this is truly what she wants. Startled, Minha looks up at him as if seeing a lifeline. Minho tells her that if she is being forced, she only has to say so and he will get her out. But Minha cannot answer immediately, trapped between hope and fear. That hesitation triggers a brutal memory of Taesik striking her mother for trying to leave. In that memory, he insists the children belong to him because they are listed under his family registry. He mocks the mother's desperation and dares her to survive without money if she leaves. When the children protest, he belittles them and their mother as naive and powerless. He teaches them his creed outright: whatever he seizes becomes his forever. He forces Minha to remember that she is his daughter and therefore his possession. Back in the present, Minha repeats that this is her own choice, but the words sound rehearsed rather than free. She says she will do it, taking the burden onto herself before anyone else can be hurt. Then she sets one condition: any money she earns must be placed in her own name. Inside, she vows that this sacrifice will become the means to save her mother and brother from Taesik. Taesik eagerly agrees, pretending generosity now that the deal is secured. Han Yongju accepts the condition just as quickly and pushes to finalize the contract. Manhwa asks the company president to take care of her, while privately measuring how much she must endure. Her mother, still frightened, asks one last time whether Manhwa is truly certain. Manhwa reassures her and asks for trust, choosing resolve over tears. She even thanks Minho for worrying about her, trying to ease his anger with a bright face. Minho remains unconvinced, reading the strain behind her smile. Later, Han Yongju leaves in a luxury car with her children after securing what she wanted. On the ride, she savors Minha's perfection and thinks of the girl only as her next vessel. She praises every detail of Minha's appearance and purity as if appraising a rare object. Han-soo, however, brings up Minho and notes that something about him felt wrong. Han Yongju asks Han Young for her judgment, trusting her instincts more than his. Han Young concludes that Minha's brother is definitely not human. Han Yongju considers that possibility and suspects he may be a demon realm tracker. Han-soo eagerly offers to eliminate the threat at once. She forbids rash action and orders them to watch instead, because securing Minha matters most. She promises Street that once the Nomu night ritual makes Minha hers, he can do whatever he wants to Minho. That promise instantly pacifies him because he trusts his mother to reward his obedience. But Han Young begins to speak a forbidden name tied to Han Yongju's past. The name shocks Han Yongju so violently that her composure cracks. Han Young coldly warns her never to use that old name again, because she now claims a new identity and a new rebirth through Minha. She swears that no demon king or great power will stop her from succeeding this time. The next day, Minha arrives at the towering NOX building to begin the path she chose. She steels herself and decides she has to endure whatever comes. With that resolve, she steps forward into the company. Inside, Han Yongju orders everyone to focus on Minha and formally introduces her as the newest member of the NOX family. She publicly announces that the viral girl will become the center of NOX's new group, Zera. The existing trainees are stunned, especially Hyan, who had been training as center for years and is abruptly demoted to support Minha. Minha can only accept the order while Hyan's resentment ignites on the spot. The moment Han Yongju leaves, the room's forced politeness collapses. Hyan confronts Minha as a political favorite who stole her place through family connections. She accuses Minha of betraying her own earlier promise never to join unless she could be center. When Minha tries to answer, Hyan lashes out physically instead. After striking her, Hyan warns that Minha's powerful backing will not save her forever. Minha touches her cheek and realizes she has been cut. Blood runs from the scratch, turning the humiliation into something much more dangerous. Elsewhere in the building, Han Yongju is just leaving when someone notices the disturbance. Han-soo gleefully senses drama and rushes to show his mother. He calls her over to the screen with childish excitement. When he reveals that Hyan clawed Minha's face and drew blood, the mood changes instantly. Minha stands frozen in the practice room while the others wait for the fallout. Han Yongju's disgust toward the attacker turns murderous in an instant. Her demonic nature surges out because someone dared damage the body she intends to steal. That night, word of Minha's debut spreads even among demons, who see it as a chance for her to dominate the human world. Street boasts that after centuries in the human realm, he always hears news first. Minho says he will not interfere just because Minha chose this path, but Han Yongju and her children still deeply unsettle him. He notes that they showed no demon aura yet did not flinch under his pressure, which makes him suspect hidden demons living among humans. His companion agrees that long-term demons in the human world can conceal themselves perfectly, so caution is necessary. When she starts speculating too broadly, Minho cuts her off and warns her not to jump to conclusions based only on his body's instincts. His friend dryly backs that up, reminding Minho that his hostile glare alone is enough to make anyone look suspicious. Lavis insists the people they are watching are suspicious and says he can still recognize a demon even without relying on aura. Even so, he admits one target named Barca slipped past his notice, which frustrates him. When his servant Street jokes about dragging him to the demon realm, Lavis snaps back and reminds her that entering there is no simple matter anymore. His irritation deepens as he broods over being unable to properly use the demon bloodstone, leaving him powerless enough to be ignored. Street reports that she has discovered a way to restore Lavis's demon power by reclaiming the bloodstone's strength. Lavis immediately orders Street and the timid servant to scout Han Yongju and the twins with servant number 1 while he prepares to recover his own power. Elsewhere that night, a woman in a yellow jacket walks alone through a quiet alley, unaware she is being approached. She breaks down in tears, devastated that something is going wrong after 4 years of effort. A blade suddenly strikes down nearby, announcing a deadly ambush. Startled, the woman realizes someone is hunting her. Her attacker steps out as a cold, black-clad woman carrying twin blades. The victim recognizes her as an older acquaintance and panics, asking what she did wrong. She hurriedly apologizes for losing her temper over Minha, hoping that old grievance is all this is about. Instead, she realizes too late that the assassin has already decided to kill her. The black-clad woman cuts her down in a single brutal strike. Blood splashes across the alley, leaving no doubt that the attack was fatal. Only after killing her does the assassin reveal her true grievance. She is enraged that the woman once slapped a girl. She explains that the victim crossed the line because that kind of abuse was something the girl's mother could never tolerate. The story shifts to Han Yongju's parents walking home, with her mother worrying about their daughter staying out late while her father brings food for the twins. Their ordinary family warmth passes unnoticed by a lurking demonic presence watching from the street. That lurking creature reveals itself as a slime-like demon fixated on the pregnant mother. The focus moves to the family's apartment building, where the real horror is about to unfold. Inside, Youngju's pregnant mother lies in bed, weak and uncomfortable. Her unease turns to fear as she senses something unnatural in the room. The slime demon appears over her and declares that it likes her very much, choosing her as its target. It attacks immediately, silencing her and making clear that it intends to crush the humans in the house. The demon reveals its true goal. It wants her children and plans to raise them itself because it needs a child. Horrified, the mother thinks only of protecting her babies. The creature forces itself into her mouth as she chokes and struggles helplessly. Her resistance fades as the possession takes hold. When she opens her eyes again, her expression has changed into the demon's grin. Her husband hears the strange sound and calls out to her from nearby. He turns in alarm when she does not answer normally. Before he can react, she lunges. Possessed, she grabs him by the throat and coldly questions whether he is even worthy of being her husband. She mocks him as low class and reveals her contempt for the life she has been forced to live. Terrified, he realizes the woman attacking him is no longer his wife. She dismisses his fear and prepares to kill him without explanation. As he falls, he cries out for Youngju, trying to warn or reach his daughter. His death is implied as blood sprays below the apartment building. The demon settles into the pregnant body with satisfaction, claiming it more fully. It openly declares that the body now belongs to it. Time passes to a hospital delivery room, where screams announce a violent birth. During labor, the possessed mother thrashes so violently that the medical staff can barely restrain her. She rages at the unborn twins as filthy things and demands they be cut out immediately, threatening to kill everyone if they are not removed. In her fury, she blames all of this suffering on Lady Ineas. That name invokes the image of a regal demon woman, revealing the source of her hatred. The staff are shaken as they realize something is terribly wrong with both mother and children. The newborn twins emerge with ominous red eyes, confirming they are not normal human babies. After giving birth, the possessed mother complains only about her weakened body and ruined figure while the twins crawl nearby. The twins still reach for her as their mother, despite what she has become. She responds with cruelty, kicking one aside and demanding repayment for the magic power she believes the children stole from her. She orders the twins to grow quickly and protect her until she can find a vessel strong enough to contain her vengeful spirit. Back in the present, people discuss how Han Youngju changed after her husband's apparent suicide. They say comforting her no longer works because she is no longer the Youngju they once knew, and they worry about the twins. Rumors spread that she hides the children from everyone and barely stays home despite once desperately wanting them. At a club, Youngju, still possessed, targets a young man who works in broadcasting. She probes him for access to attractive children, revealing her predatory interest. The man senses something unsettling but is too drawn in to pull away. Before he can answer, her influence overtakes him. She physically and supernaturally pulls him under her control. Thinking of Ineas, she vows to claim every beautiful young thing in the human world for herself. Her obsession sharpens into a promise that she will one day kill Ineas with her own hands. The scene returns to an investigation, where a grieving executive explains that Haiyan had been the beloved center of a debut group. The detective presses for possible grudges, workplace conflict, or stalking that might explain Haiyan's murder. The executive suddenly becomes violently ill in the middle of answering. A blue-haired subordinate ends the interview, saying the CEO loved Haiyan like a daughter and cannot continue. To clear the room, the detective tells the silent trainee to go meet the other trainees first. The detective's partner agrees to leave, though the interruption feels suspicious. The two detectives withdraw for the moment. As they go, the female detective lingers in thought, sensing something off. The door closes, leaving the company staff alone. The CEO's sickness suddenly turns from ordinary nausea into something monstrous. She vomits a stream of green bile and writhing larvae, exposing a demonic corruption inside her. The floor fills with crawling maggots, making the infestation undeniable. Even in that state, the CEO rages about the detective's scrutiny and the money she has spent trying to keep the situation contained. Her blue-haired son tries to soothe her, though he notices even her head is decaying now. The rotting woman reveals her desperation, blaming Haiyan for damaging the vessel she is using and leaving her body to rot before she can act. Her son promises that he will soon prepare young Minha's body for her, urging her not to worry. She accepts only enough to order him to hurry and begin immediately. The story shifts to the trainees hearing the official news about Haiyan's murder. The blue-haired man downplays it as the work of some random lunatic, though the brutality shocks everyone. Using the murder as justification, he announces that all trainees will move into dorms the next day for safety and tighter control. Minha immediately questions whether that sudden dorm move is really necessary. He pressures her by saying dorm life is standard and privately resolves to make her submit to his will. Minha hesitates because leaving home would abandon her mother and younger brother. The silent black-haired trainee, Yanai, coolly notes that Minha is making a lot of demands. The blue-haired man quickly calms Yanai, showing that even he is wary of provoking her. His inner thoughts reveal why. If Yanai harms Minha's face, their mother will kill her. He explains to Minha that Yanai cared deeply for Haiyan and is emotionally unstable after her death. The trainees are told the CEO will handle their parents, and they are expected to return packed and obedient. Minha accepts outwardly, but privately grows more anxious because even her brother has been acting strangely lately. Back at Lavis's hideout, the training is interrupted by a commotion outside. While the nervous servant struggles with light weights, Lavis trains with ease and dismisses the effort around him as useless. Lavis senses his knot strengthening and concludes he may soon be able to suppress humans using demonic energy, though true demonic beasts would still be dangerous. He curses Bambi for using him without teaching him how to control the demon bloodstone. A flashback reveals that Bambi once wrote Lavis a letter promising 2 gifts, including instructions for the bloodstone. The first gift was supposed to be the method for controlling the demon bloodstone. Bambi explained that the bloodstone normally suppresses prisoners' magic, but he altered Lavis's to connect the power in his vengeful spirit directly to his human body. He also explained that the full power would only be released once the bloodstone was broken, which would require destroying Lavis's eye. The second gift was a child sent to Lavis's care, entrusted to him with affection and apology. Bambi expected Lavis to read the letter carefully and regain his strength from it, but Lavis never read it and instead only raged that Bambi was manipulating him. Realizing this, Lavis finally asks whether the missing method was in that unopened letter after all. Before that can be settled, the cat familiar rushes in with urgent news. The others are startled both by the cat's panic and by the fact that it is now running upright in its haste. The cat reports that it has found information about Han Yongju and the twins. Its revelation is explosive. Han Yongju's CO identity is actually Mara, and she has been Mara all along. The timid servant has no idea who Mara is, forcing an explanation. A vision identifies Mara Viliax as the Witch of Greed, one of the 12 Black Seats, who has stolen a human body and is living in the human world. Instead of fear, Lavis reacts with sudden interest. He realizes the dangerous woman he sensed has been hiding nearby this whole time. A flashback shows Mara in the demon realm, fawning over Lady Ineas's beauty and especially her words. Ineas tells her that true beauty in speech comes from learning to hold truth within one's lips. Mara takes that lesson literally and worshipfully, believing truthful words themselves will make her beautiful. Another demon mother asks that her daughter be taught rhetoric so the child might resemble Ineas and learn that words are both weapon and dignity. Ineas graciously grants the girl the blessing of the silver tongue. The court celebrates Ineas's generosity, while Mara watches with growing resentment. Mara dismisses the praise around her as hypocrisy and nonsense. When another demon praises Mara's own beauty, it only sharpens the comparison she cannot escape. Mara grants that demon's daughter a twisted blessing instead, cursing the girl to be consumed by desire and die. The mother is horrified, realizing too late what Mara has done. Mara silently swears revenge. Her hatred crystallizes into a vow that she will never forgive Ineas. Back in the present, the cat concludes that Mara's obsession with Ineas was rooted in a lifelong inferiority complex. The timid servant adds that his mother said Mara had been like that since childhood, though no one took it seriously. He further explains that after rising to the 12 Dark Thrones, Mara was caught stealing from the spring of demon souls and fled to the human world. The timid servant wonders whether Mara approached Manhwa because she somehow knows Lavis's true identity. Lavis rejects that idea, reasoning that if Mara knew who he really was, she would never have left him alone until now. He instead concludes that in his current weakened body he cannot defeat Mara, especially if her followers are also powerful. The cat insists they must strengthen the demon bloodstone as quickly as possible. It enthusiastically launches a witch-hunting plan, beginning with cleaning up the local riffraff. The story then returns to Manhwa shopping with her mother in a large store. Her mother gently offers Manhwa a chance to quit idol training, worried because trouble keeps following her since she joined. Manhwa reassures her that the company believes the killer will be caught soon and tries to frame Hayan's death as random violence. Her mother reminds her that becoming a veterinarian used to be her real dream. That reminder makes Manhwa hesitate as she looks at pet supplies and the life she once imagined. She admits to herself that reaching that dream the normal way would take too long. What she wants most is to rescue her mother from their miserable home as soon as possible through her own effort. She steels herself and grips the cart, making her decision. Manhwa tells her mother that opportunities like this are rare, dreams can change, and she intends to become famous and earn a lot of money. Her mother worries that dorm life will separate them, but Manhwa asks her not to worry and says the abusive man at home should calm down after the election. The mother can only apologize, burdened by guilt for what her daughter endures. She blames herself, thinking that if she had not remarried, Manhwa would not be suffering like this. Manhwa firmly rejects that guilt and reminds her mother how hard she worked to raise both children after their father died. She says they were all deceived by the stepfather, who had once seemed kind before marriage. Her mother is moved but still overwhelmed by the pain of it all. Manhwa asks her to wait just a little longer and promises to work hard for them. The chapter ends by shifting to a bright amusement park, where screams ring out from a ride. A roller coaster plunges forward with its passengers shrieking, setting up the next incident. Miho dismisses human fear as pathetic and beneath him. Street mocks that arrogance while Miho tries to hide that he is still sick from a bad ride and spoiled food. Humiliated, Miho vows he will never go through that experience again. The trio arrives at a haunted attraction whose ominous atmosphere suggests a demon may be hiding there. Street confirms this is the exact place they were tracking. Street proudly reports that a demon recently escaped surveillance in the human world, and she traced it here. Miho immediately asks for the demon's identity. They learn the fugitive is Scream, a demon that converts fear-filled screams into demonic power. Street concludes that using someone who screams easily would be the best bait. Street instantly volunteers Miho's timid attendant, who insists he has never screamed in his life. Miho heads inside anyway, while the attendant desperately tries to stay behind as a guard. Inside the horror house, the attendant panics at the decorations while Miho senses a real demonic presence among them. Miho reminds him they came to catch that presence, and tells him to stop overreacting. A hidden monster suddenly lunges, and both boys are startled into screaming. The attendant clings to Miho in terror as the attack passes. When the attendant points out Miho's scream too, Miho lies that he only pretended to test the enemy. The attendant dryly notes that this must have been Miho's first scream as well. In the darkness, a watching eye opens, having noticed them. Miho recalls that his demonic bloodstone releases more power whenever it reacts to evil in the human world. He realizes that absorbing the stronger evil of demons could unlock even more of that sealed power. Scream becomes fascinated by Miho's fresh, unusually pure scream. The demon compares it to a baby's first cry, making the attendant panic even more. Delighted, Scream demands more screams so it can feed. The attendant finally understands they have found the target and calls to Miho in fear. As Scream reaches for the attendant, Miho moves to intercept. He stops the demon cold and declares the terrified boy is under his protection as his attendant. Scream immediately senses that Miho is not truly human. Miho drops the pretense and challenges the demon to scream instead. Scream mocks him and knocks him away with ease, proving Miho is still weak. The demon ignores Miho and turns back to savor the attendant's fear. Miho gets up frustrated, realizing only his left hand is currently usable in combat. Even so, he charges back at Scream to keep it away from his attendant. Scream blocks him and taunts him for trying to crawl back into the fight. Miho is swatted aside again, unable to match the demon's speed and strength. The attendant can only scream warnings as Scream closes in once more. Scream feeds greedily on that terror and grows stronger from every cry. Miho shouts at the attendant to stop helping the enemy with his panic, and the boy tries to obey. Scream revels in the terror in the attendant's eyes and attacks Miho again. The demon even fantasizes about mutilating him for a better scream. Miho realizes he is being cornered and starts searching for a way to turn the situation. He lunges back in and demands whether the demon thinks he is the one who is afraid. Scream laughs at his short reach and treats his resistance like a joke. The demon keeps mocking him as cute and harmless. Miho admits to himself that in this human body his movement is below even human standards and far too weak for a demon of this level. Scream batters him again and sends him flying. The attendant watches in horror, convinced Miho is about to die. Pinned and struggling, Miho still refuses to give in. Scream forges a blade from the attendant's screams and prepares a cruel finishing move. It threatens to gouge out Miho's eye just to hear what kind of scream that pain will produce. Miho curses the demon but swears he will not scream for it. Scream decides to test that resolve by driving the scream blade straight at his eye. At the last instant, Miho realizes what is about to happen. The blade pierces his eye and shatters the seal within it instead of breaking his spirit. The attendant can only cry out in despair. Blood falls as the damage triggers a deeper change in Miho. Scream pauses, sensing something has gone wrong. Miho feels his condition changing rather than worsening. To his shock, the ruined eye suddenly clears and his vision returns. He remembers a written modification made to his demonic bloodstone. That alteration connected the demonic power sealed in his vengeful spirit directly to his human body, but only once the bloodstone itself was shattered. Miho realizes Bambi hid the true unlocking condition inside that injury. Scream panics when its screen blade fails to destroy even a single human eye. Miho answers that the attack failed because he is no longer merely human. With newly awakened power, he tears into Scream and finally forces it back. He orders his attendant to keep screaming instead of stopping. When the attendant protests that this should only strengthen the demon, Miho insists without explanation. Unable to understand but forced to trust him, the attendant obeys. He steels himself and starts screaming on purpose. The forced terror becomes real enough to pour out in a continuous cry. Scream greedily absorbs those screams, unaware it is being baited. Miho realizes the opening of the bloodstone is also releasing the seal on his right leg. The attendant's scream intensifies, feeding the trap. Scream boasts that Miho's arrogance is only making it stronger. Miho reveals the flaw in Scream's power. Every time it consumes a scream, its movements momentarily slow. He prepares to exploit that opening and demands to hear the demon's own scream. Miho launches himself with savage delight, turning the hunt around. His awakened power crashes down on Scream in a massive strike. The blow tears through the demon's body and overwhelms it completely. Miho feels the shell of the demonic bloodstone fully break open. He rides the surge of power through the collapsing demon. As he absorbs Scream's evil, he realizes this kind of demonic corruption can restore his original strength far faster than human evil ever could. Scream tries to reassure itself that Miho's power cannot return so quickly, even as it disintegrates. The demon is reduced to fragments and consumed. Miho calmly confirms that the result was exactly what he expected. He judges the evil gathered here to be far beyond anything humans could provide. Now that the bloodstone is unlocked, he decides he only needs to keep absorbing evil until his former power returns. The attendant, shaken but alive, asks whether Miho is really alright after absorbing the demon. Miho answers with unsettling calm and immediately proposes hunting down the next demon. Elsewhere, the story shifts to a high-rise building. A young woman is escorted to a room by a strict director. The director orders her to unpack and forbids her from leaving until practice begins. The girl obediently agrees, though she is clearly tense. Once the director leaves, she is alone with her thoughts. She thinks of her mother and brother, drawing strength from them. She clenches her fist to steady herself. She resolves that she can endure whatever comes next. A surveillance camera watches the room from above. The camera quietly records her isolation. Then a monstrous hand reaches toward her as an unseen motherly voice excitedly addresses Suya. The scene reveals a grotesque mother figure controlling a blue-haired son, who promises obedience even if she switches to another body. Back outside, Miho and his attendant continue moving through the city. Strit suddenly catches the scent of blood and realizes something has changed. She formally congratulates Miho on recovering his demonic energy and addresses him by his true title, Lord Ravis Vindica, Master of Blood. Strit pledges herself as his shadow and servant wherever he goes. Miho tells her not to overdo the ceremony and orders her to provide the next targets while she tracks Mara. He wants every demon located so he can deal with them as soon as he regains more power. The next hunt begins with a lit cigarette in the night. They find a Pepsiol, a demon that feeds on the evil energy produced by human lungs. Miho seizes the demon before it can keep feeding. He commands it to come with him, leaving the creature confused and terrified. Instead of negotiating, he simply tears into it with blood power. The foul stench disgusts him and makes both boys cough. Miho immediately asks for the next target. They move on to Asura, a demon that steals the memories of drunk humans, and Miho cuts it down just as quickly. As he absorbs another demon, he remarks on how filthy they all smell and wonders why so many demons survive by feeding on humans. He explains that demons who cross into the mortal realm lose their demonic energy at the barrier and must replace it somehow or die. The attendant finally accepts that possession and these supernatural horrors are real. With enough mana gathered, Miho decides to try restoring one of his old weapons. The attendant watches in amazement as power gathers in Miho's hand. Miho successfully summons Damerkal, his sword, though not yet in its full form. The attendant worries that sending Strit alone after Mara is dangerous. Miho dismisses the concern, reasoning that Strit's tiny demonic presence makes her hard to notice. Hidden nearby, Strit has already transformed into a small bat-like scout. While waiting, she complains that the mission is starving her. She suddenly spots something important. Strit dives after the clue at full speed. She snatches up a strange worm-like insect and realizes it matters. The discovery shocks her. Strit identifies the insect as being infused with Mara's demonic energy. She rushes back to report the finding to Lord Ravis at once. Meanwhile, a car emerges from an underground parking structure. The vehicle pulls away into the night. Inside, the blue-haired son proudly tells his mother he cleanly knocked out the girl and asks for praise. The hooded mother encourages him to continue. He eagerly urges the unconscious girl onward as if she were already his possession. The captive remains limp and unaware. Strit returns in a panic, but with the parasite still in her mouth she can barely get the warning out. After spitting it out, she presents the foul thing to Miho and Street. Miho identifies it as Mara's parasite, and concludes Mara lost its original form crossing the barrier and possessed a human body instead. He explains that if a parasite has emerged, Mara now needs a new host because a human body cannot contain that soul for long. The attendant realizes Mara's earlier interest may have been directed at Minha's body, and Miho agrees that Mara has always coveted youth and beauty. Miho angrily insults Mara as a decrepit old woman, leaving the attendant baffled by the personal tone. When asked about his mother's age, Miho casually reveals she would be over 6,000 years old in human terms. He then tries to remember his own age and drifts into an old memory from when he first visited the mortal realm with his uncle. In that memory, he watched humans constructing a monumental structure. His uncle boasted that the humans were building a temple for him. The uncle declared himself a being far above lesser devils and tried to impress his young nephew. But a scholarly companion corrected him, explaining the humans were actually worshipping Are of the heavenly realm. The uncle exploded in outrage that anyone would honor a god he claimed to have defeated. He finally brushed the correction aside and decided that since he had won, the temple belonged to him anyway. As the group realizes they are dealing with something far older and stranger than expected, panic rises over the warning that Minha may already be in Mara's grasp. The blue-haired demon girl urges immediate action, fearing Lord Ravis's younger sibling will be devoured if they hesitate. Miho falls silent as the warning lands and he starts connecting it to Minha. He finally understands the crisis clearly and realizes Minha is the one being consumed. The story shifts to the hidden building deep in the forest where the truth behind Mara's scheme is unfolding. At the site, a hooded, decaying woman recalls the night she was born as she arrives with her children and an unconscious girl. She describes this place as a concealed gap between worlds, hidden even from heaven. One of her children checks whether they have reached the correct destination. She confirms that this building sits in a rift between the demon and human realms, perfect for her purposes. The others are unsettled as they take in what lies inside. They enter a chamber filled with corpses and strange flowers, revealing that Mara has turned the place into a grotesque garden of death. A horned demon confronts them, demanding to know who has invaded his domain. The hooded woman calmly identifies herself as Mara Belias and declares that she has claimed the rift for herself, shocking the demon. Mara mocks him as a fallen former power who can no longer wield proper magic and orders him out of what she now considers her territory. The demon is distracted by the bodies and flowers, while Mara's son casually warns him not to step on the blossoms. Mara admits she is currently weak and that merely maintaining a human body is exhausting her. To compensate, she reveals the children she prepared to protect her. The demon recognizes them as human-demon hybrids and sneers that their parents look pathetic instead of protective. Mara dismisses his judgment and insists that since she gave them life, they exist to serve her, while scorning his flowers as worthless weeds. The insult enrages the demon, who reveals the flowers are sacred to him. He lunges in fury, unable to bear that no one recognizes the value of what he treasures. His attack crashes into the chamber with explosive force. Mara's son intercepts him while still carrying Minha, casually knocking the demon back and treating the assault like an annoyance. Mara praises her son with twisted maternal pride. The scene flashes back to the origin of Mara's hybrids, beginning with her obsession over a stolen substance called the demonic soul spring. She had forced the stolen liquid down crying children's throats, commanding them to swallow it so they could become useful to her. The demonic soul spring is introduced as a legendary source of power from the deepest valley of the demon world. It is said to be formed from the tears of the god who created the world and to serve as the source of magic itself. For Mara, it was the only holy water capable of satisfying her greed. She had stolen it in defiance of its rightful monopolizer and cursed him as she clutched the prize. Even as the children suffered, she coldly decided the sacrifice was acceptable if it made them strong enough to protect her. Her true goal was to survive in the human world until she could find Circle, hidden there. Back in the present, Miho's group races through the forest as the scent of Mara grows stronger. Their guide confirms they have found the source of the stench at the isolated building. The students are stunned to find such a structure hidden in a place like this. The blue-haired girl admits the smell is so overwhelming that even her nose has become useless. Miho, desperate and out of breath, begs Minha's brother to save her no matter what. The stoic boy decides to move in, dragging Miho along despite his protests. He dryly tells Miho that if nothing else, he can at least serve as a shield. The blue-haired girl throws her support behind Lord Lavis and urges him to defeat Mara. Lavis unexpectedly orders her to come too, saying they need numbers. She is horrified to learn that she has just been drafted into the fight as well. Her courage falters and she briefly regrets ever leaving the safety of her former master for wealth and glory. Inside, a magic circle activates around Minha's body as Mara's ritual nears completion. Mara delights in the response and calls for the ritual to continue. The fallen flower demon, now cornered, begs the Witch of Greed for mercy and offers his usefulness if she intends to remain in the human world. Mara's son immediately asks to keep him alive as a servant who can handle minor tasks. The demon bitterly notes that all of them are equally rotten. He condemns the whole group as a fitting cluster of addicts, runaways, and hybrids bound together by greed and betrayal. Mara suddenly notices a familiar face among the intruders and realizes Minha's brother has arrived. Miho is shaken by the chamber of corpses and struggles to accept that the horror before him is real. A flower-covered survivor addresses him by name, revealing he has been here all along. The survivor identifies himself as I'm Xian and reminds Miho that he once saved his life, expecting obedience in return. Miho recoils in disgust as he realizes he has stepped into the true demon world. The flower demon recognizes that Xian's interference ruined his earlier plan. Mara's son, trusting his instincts, declares that Lavis is no ordinary human and asks his mother if she knows who he is. The blue-haired girl proudly reveals that the quiet student is actually Lord Lavis Vindica, a fallen demon noble feared for slaughtering the Bauer family. Mara is stunned to learn that the boy before her is the son of the great demon King Ineas and the very Lavis Vindica she knows by reputation. The revelation triggers old hatred, as Lavis is remembered as the butcher who wiped out her family. Mara quickly reframes the situation and realizes this is her chance, because Lavis is trapped in a human body and far from his former peak. She decides she can finally avenge her family with her own hands. Her hatred spills over into resentment toward Ineas, whom she blames for sending her cherished son into the human world to interfere. Lavis calmly assesses the battlefield and concludes he cannot fight Mara and both hybrids at once, especially with the unreliable Bauer survivor nearby. He chooses to remove one variable first and orders Bauer to leave. The flower demon refuses, furious that Lavis still carries himself like a lord of the demon world. Lavis answers with a burst of blood magic and warns him to flee if he does not want to die here. The threat instantly breaks the demon's nerve. Lavis then declares himself the Lord of Blood and orders the demons hiding in the human world to behave until his return if they wish to survive. Mara is horrified that he can still use magic despite being in a human body and demands to know how. Her son curses the situation as the balance of power shifts. The flower demon is blasted out of the building, removed from the immediate conflict. Lavis coldly tells Mara that stealing another person's body is not something done without paying a brutal price. Mara fixates on being called an old woman and lashes out more from wounded pride than strategy. Her son tries to calm her, warning her not to overexert herself in her decaying state. She reins herself in, but her curiosity sharpens as she studies Lavis more closely. Mara decides the cruelest revenge would be to tear apart the child Ineas treasured most and imagine the mother's reaction. Lavis answers that he is equally curious to see Mara's face if the children of the woman she envied all her life were the ones to die. Provoked, Mara orders her twins Hansu and Henyang to bring her Lavis's tongue. The twins arm themselves with chain maces and rush to obey. The son eagerly volunteers to strike first and promises his mother she will not wait long. The daughter silently joins the assault with deadly focus. The son boasts that his own strength is enough and dismisses the need for his sister's help. The battle erupts as Lavis, the daughter, and the blue-haired girl all move at once against the twins' weapons. The daughter orders Hansu to stay out of her way, making clear that the twins are already competing instead of cooperating. Hansu ignores her and complains that she is blocking his attack. She snaps back that he should stop talking and simply cover her blind side. Lavis immediately notices that their teamwork is non-existent and decides to exploit it. He maneuvers so that the twins' attacks threaten each other more than him, betting they will self-destruct before finishing him. Hansu nearly gets hit by his sister and yells at her instead of focusing on Lavis. Lavis reads them perfectly, recognizing one as recklessly overconfident and the other as bitterly cynical, a pair made to fracture. He drives his blade into the chaos to widen the split between them. The daughter is forced to block Lavis while also avoiding her brother's interference. Hansu's chain mace slams into her weapon path, ruining her rhythm. He only grows more frustrated and swings harder, determined to claim the kill himself. The daughter realizes her brother is becoming a liability. Lavis capitalizes on the opening and cuts into her at close range. Seeing the twins' strength even in mixed blood, Lavis wonders what exactly Mara did to create them. Hansu takes pleasure in his sister's setback and vows that he will be the one to take Lavis's tongue. Lavis counters his charge and wounds him as well, refusing to let either twin dominate the fight. The daughter retaliates, insisting that if Lavis dies, his head belongs to her. Her strike catches Lavis and forces him back, proving she is still dangerous despite the confusion. She is startled that he can slip through such a tight exchange at all. Hansu, more concerned with ownership than victory, scolds his sister for nearly killing Lavis before he can do it himself. Their attacks continue to cross and collide, turning the battlefield into a contest of ego. The chamber fills with overlapping arcs of magic and steel as the fight spirals wider. The daughter presses Lavis again, forcing him to defend from below. Driven by obsession, she mutters that he must die. Lavis kicks free and creates space before she can finish him. He realizes he lacks the mana to handle both twins cleanly and considers provoking them even further. He taunts Hansu by calling his sister the stronger elder, and the insult lands exactly where he wants. Hansu explodes in outrage, insisting he was born first and launching a furious all-out attack. Lavis is almost bemused by how easily the bait works. The twins' attacks crash into each other again, and the daughter screams as the exchange turns against them. She calls her brother an idiot for rushing into close range and making himself easy to manipulate. Hansu refuses to listen and insists he alone will deliver Lavis's corpse to their mother. Lavis senses the moment he has been waiting for as Hansu's attacks become rougher and more predictable. He steps into striking distance and prepares to finish the reckless twin. Elsewhere in the chamber, the blue-haired girl confronts Mara directly and condemns how far a once-revered member of the 12 Black Seats has fallen to greed. Mara erupts at being called grotesque by someone she considers beneath her. The blue-haired girl is wounded in the clash but uses the opening to call for Cheyenne to act now. Cheyenne runs to Minha and throws up a protective barrier around her body. Miho desperately pushes against the barrier, trying to break through and reach her. The barrier burns and freezes at once, making even contact with it agonizing. He keeps forcing himself forward despite the pain, refusing to stop. Minha remains motionless inside the ritual circle while Miho begs her to wake up. The blue-haired girl continues holding Mara off, buying time with sheer determination. She vows to endure somehow and tells Cheyenne to focus only on saving Minha. Miho keeps battering the barrier with his bare hands even as it tears at him. His hands begin to fail under the strain. He nearly breaks down, telling himself he is only human and powerless here. A memory of his ordinary, happy life with his friends flashes through him and reminds him what he is fighting for. He rejects despair and decides that being human is not enough reason to give up. With renewed resolve, he swears they will save Minha no matter what. He slams his fist into the barrier again with everything he has left. At the same time, Mara overwhelms the blue-haired girl and drives her into the wall with a brutal strike. Mara advances on her and declares that the childish beast's playtime is over. Even injured, the blue-haired girl is forced to admit that Mara's power remains monstrous despite her rotting body. Mara mocks the idea that her weakened appearance means she can be handled easily. She impales the blue-haired girl with multiple attacks and leaves her screaming against the wall. The girl can only cry out in pain as the wounds pin her in place. Mara turns back to Miho and orders him to watch helplessly as she promises him a miserable end. The blue-haired girl, trapped and bleeding, desperately tells Cheyenne to run before Mara reaches him. Miho freezes for a moment as the threat closes in and his options vanish. Mara's dark power engulfs him, pinning him down and stopping his body from responding. She coldly decides she will use both Miho and Minha as nourishment. Miho struggles in panic as the sludge locks him in place, and he realizes he cannot move at all. Mara returns to Minha's ritual, deciding she has wasted enough time on the others. She begins a final oath, invoking a soul-cleaving blade and vowing to discard her rotting flesh by force. As the oath completes, Minha's eyes flare open under Mara's spell, signaling that the ritual has reached its final stage. Lavis and the daughter both sense the change at once, and he reacts in alarm as the fight is suddenly overshadowed by Mara's completed oath. A silver-haired fighter unleashes a crimson blade, committing fully to a desperate counterattack. His demonic eye sharpens as he locks onto the enemies surrounding him. He meets the assault head-on, forcing back multiple attackers at once with a violent burst of sword power. The clash scatters the group across the room, briefly breaking the encirclement. As everyone lunges to seize the initiative, the one-eyed ally tries to claim the first move while the chain-wielding enemy is ordered to stop. Before he can press forward, the chain user is suddenly bound by pink energy and thrown off balance. His confusion deepens as the restraint tightens and interrupts his attack completely. A gag seals his mouth, cutting off any chance to shout or cast. Pinned against a pillar, he can only struggle helplessly. The black-haired fanatic reveals herself as the one who intervened, furious that anyone dared mistreat her beloved Robbies. At the ritual circle, the old vessel begins disgorging dark fluid as the transfer reaches a critical stage. The black mass pours out of the ruined body and surges toward Minha. It enters through Minha's mouth, forcing the possession deeper into her body. The invading essence keeps flooding in, overwhelming her from within. When the stream ends, the transfer appears complete enough for the new host to awaken. Mara rejoices through Minha's face, declaring that she has finally obtained the perfect vessel. The original body collapses beside the glowing circle, now little more than a discarded shell. Inside Manhwa's body, Mara revels in the sensation of fresh flesh and restored movement. She exults that this beautiful body will be hers forever. Seeing Manhwa taken over, the bespectacled boy breaks into panic and refuses to accept it. The blue-haired demon girl cries out for Manhwa in horror. Robbie tries to rush to Manhwa, but the one-eyed ally blocks him and forces him to keep fighting. Robbie realizes with dread that he has arrived too late to stop the possession. The black-haired fanatic, still love-struck, gets distracted admiring Robbie's instead of helping. Robbie fights through pain and keeps swinging, refusing to give up despite being wounded. The fanatic scolds herself for freezing up, reminding herself that Robbie's is in real danger. Even then, she hesitates because stepping in would make Robbie's notice her. Her embarrassment nearly paralyzes her, but she knows she cannot keep admiring him from the sidelines. The gagged chain user suddenly notices her indecision and opportunity. Still bound and muffled, he thrashes violently to get her attention and break her focus. The one-eyed ally notices his condition and recognizes him as Hansu. Robbie sees the opening and prepares to strike past his blocker. The one-eyed ally intercepts him again, cursing Hansu for creating the chance. In Manhwa's body, Mara pauses as if sensing a new disturbance. She notices movement below and turns toward the source with predatory curiosity. Hansu, now partly freed, gasps as he regains enough control to move. Mara spots him and immediately identifies him as the little rat who interfered. Hansu realizes in shock that Mara truly succeeded in taking Manhwa's body, while Mara mockingly asks whether her new appearance is pretty. The boy understands the worst has happened and fears everything may already be over. The blue-haired demon girl refuses to surrender and announces that Manhwa's soul has not vanished completely. Robbie turns at once, seizing on that single hope. She explains that tonight's moonless night destabilizes magic, contracts, and souls because the boundary between worlds is blurred. That means Mara's ritual cannot be considered fully complete until the night ends, so Manhwa's soul should still remain inside. Those words visibly shake Mara, who realizes her hold is not absolute yet. Manhwa's trapped soul briefly surfaces and begs Miho to save her because her body is moving against her will. Robbie recognizes that the plea is genuine and that Manhwa is still fighting from within. Mara immediately suppresses that moment of resistance with a mocking grin. She toys with them by imitating Manhwa's voice perfectly and laughing at how convincing the act is. Robbie snaps in fury at being mocked with Manhwa's own voice. Mara grows bored with the game and orders Youngma to stop hesitating and kill everyone. Youngma obeys at once and charges back into the fight, eager to finish both the heroes and the hidden meddler. Robbie meets the renewed assault while seething over the humiliation of being stalled by opponents he considers beneath him. At the same time, Mara decides to feed on the others to strengthen her unstable new body. She weighs her prey while the boy and the blue-haired demon girl realize they are about to be eaten first. A small purple capsule rolls into the room, interrupting her choice. Mara notices the object at her feet and pauses to inspect it. The capsule opens, releasing a tiny red-eyed familiar charged with ominous energy. The little creature fixes Mara with a hostile stare as if it was sent for this exact moment. Red smoke bursts out and wraps around Mara, startling her and disrupting her control. Robbie senses that the strange smoke may be the key to turning the battle. Mara recoils from the foul stench and loses composure for the first time. The black-haired fanatic finally acts, moving decisively instead of daydreaming. She drives a weapon into the blue-haired demon girl's chest from behind, betraying her without hesitation. The blue-haired demon girl is stunned to realize who attacked her. The wound reveals a hidden device embedded in her body rather than a normal injury. The fanatic, Jin Jae-wee, coldly orders her to use that device, and the blue-haired demon girl realizes who has been manipulating events. At the same time, Mara lashes out and batters the bespectacled boy with a tentacle. Jin Jae-wee shoves a modified gun into the boy's hands and tells the human to use it to help their brother. The boy stares at the weapon in confusion, barely understanding why it was given to him. The blue-haired demon girl recognizes it as a weapon altered with demon realm power, and is shocked that Jin Jae-wee possesses such a thing. The boy is equally baffled about why Jin Jae-wee entrusted him with it. As he grips the gun, its power activates and begins resonating with him. The weapon floods him with pink energy, forcing open a new perception. The surge overwhelms his body, making his head spin and his heart race violently. His senses distort further until he can barely breathe, but the change keeps deepening. Mara, now wary, demands to know what this weapon is and what he intends to do with it. The blue-haired demon girl throws herself at Mara to keep her from stopping him. Mara dismisses the device as a toy, but the demon girl insists its true effect has not appeared yet. Mara mocks her as a discarded low-class beast and assumes the outcome is already decided. The demon girl fires back that Mara is the one ruined by greed, and the two collide in a savage exchange. Their struggle tears chunks from Mara's tentacles and litters the floor with black flesh. Mara realizes the weapon is more than a toy after all. Instead of retreating, she decides to devour the altered flesh and absorb every advantage she can. As she feeds and mutates, her tentacles thicken until even the demon girl's claws can no longer cut them. The blue-haired demon girl warns that Mara is rapidly adapting to Manhwa's body, so every delay makes the situation worse. Mara savors the prospect of eating a fresh demon beast next. The demon girl suddenly notices the true source of Mara's incomplete transfer. She identifies the umbilical cord still connecting Mara's new vessel to the old corpse. She explains that Manhwa is only human, so she cannot absorb all of Mara's essence at once. That is why the original body and the magic circle are still preserving the transfer process. Mara lashes out with a sweeping tentacle strike to stop the explanation. Even while defending herself, the demon girl shouts that they must sever the cord or break the magic circle protecting the corpse. Meanwhile, the boy notices Minha's breathing stabilizing, proof that the possession has been disrupted. He looks at the strange gun and struggles to understand how he can use it to help. Then he spots the old body lying inside the barrier and begins connecting the clues. He realizes the tentacles are still linked to that corpse, not fully rooted in Minha yet. From that, he concludes the transfer into Minha has not finished. He further understands that the magic circle exists to protect the original body until the transfer is complete. A plan forms immediately. If he can destroy the circle, there is still a chance to save Minha. The weapon's power sharpens his vision until the hidden logic of the spell becomes visible. To his astonishment, he can literally see the structure of the magic circle and realizes it can be analyzed like geometry. He reframes magic as mathematics, reducing the circle to shapes, formulas, and solvable structure. With that insight, he identifies the circle as the system maintaining the connection between the corpse and Minha, and resolves to find its weak point. He begins writing glowing equations in the air, translating the spell into mathematical terms. As he studies the barrier, he traces the mana flow, identifies the core pattern, and starts deriving the seal's hidden extremum. The blue-haired demon girl realizes in amazement that he is actually solving the magic circle in real time. She also understands that Jin Jaewi's weapon must be what allows a human to analyze magic this way, and fights harder to protect him. Mara recognizes the danger and lunges for the boy, determined to kill the rat before he finishes. The demon girl intercepts her again, buying him the time he needs. The boy converts the circle's structure into matrix form and keeps reducing the spell with relentless logic. He realizes the circle has only one true weakness, and that finding the key value will expose it. He solves it at last, identifies the critical point, and knows exactly where the spell can be broken. He raises the gun and targets the circle's local minimum, treating the spell like a theorem to be disproved. With manic certainty, he declares the circle's destruction and fires. A massive pink blast erupts from the weapon and tears across the room. The beam slams into the barrier with overwhelming force. The impact keeps drilling through as the spell begins to fail. The shot punches directly into the circle around the old body and shatters its protected center. Mara whirls around in disbelief as her ritual is sabotaged. The recoil and backlash hurl the boy across the floor, but the shot has already landed. Mara screams in outrage, demanding to know how a human managed to damage her magic circle. The boy, half delirious from the weapon's power, laughs and answers that the formula worked exactly as calculated. The gun falls from his hand as the result becomes clear. He confirms that the magic circle has collapsed. Mara rages because her full crossing into Minha's body has been interrupted before completion. The blue-haired demon girl praises the boy's success and takes over the battle's final step herself. She rushes straight for the old corpse, and Mara realizes too late what she intends. Ignoring Mara's protests, the demon girl reaches the original body. She hacks into the corpse with brutal precision, aiming to sever the remaining connection. Mara howls as the attack tears into the source body, sustaining her transfer. The demon girl follows with another crushing strike that further destroys the corpse. The force sends her skidding away, but the damage is done. Mara desperately crawls toward the ruined body, refusing to let the ritual be undone. She frantically tries to preserve every scrap of the original flesh, terrified of losing even a piece of her noble body. The blue-haired demon girl condemns Mara's greed, saying it grew too large to support itself and has finally broken under its own weight. Mara rejects the rebuke and vows to devour the demon girl down to the bone. The demon girl answers that Mara's greed and the filthy things clinging to it will burn away together. At that moment, a transformed Robbie steps forward, radiating ominous power while holding the defeated enemies by the head and shoulder. One of the beaten attackers apologizes to Mara and reveals that the red smoke was absorbed by Robbie's, causing his sudden surge in strength. Mara realizes with alarm that the smoke empowered the wrong person. The tiny familiar confirms that the earlier smoke was the trigger for this change. From the sidelines, Jin Jaewi watches with satisfied affection, as if this outcome was exactly what she wanted. A flashback reveals that in the demon realm, someone deliberately drew blood from Robbie's original body and preserved it. That blood had been kept in reserve as a last resort, despite the reluctance to use it. The one who prepared it explains that Ban Vega left instructions for Robbie's. Those instructions said that a special demon blood stone had been implanted into his new body. If he absorbed blood from his main body, he could recover part of his original power. Now restored in part, Robbie's feels the freshness of that long-lost power returning to him. Mara lashes out in frustration, berating her allies as useless because even together they failed to stop this one reversal. The batted chain user can only groan as the balance of power shifts decisively away from Mara. A woman is suddenly struck from behind, and the fight begins with brutal force. Both sides lock into a murderous clash, each glaring at the other with raw hatred. The horned boy stands in the center of the assault and calmly deflects attacks coming from every direction. The chained young man takes the opening as permission to kill and turns his rage on his own mother. The bob-haired woman also throws herself in, consumed by the same urge to slaughter him. Even while wounded, the boy repels both of them at once and keeps control of the battlefield. The orange-haired woman demands to know why Robbie's Vindica, who claims to be the demon realm's prince, would risk himself for an ordinary human girl. She presses harder by insisting the girl is not even his real little sister. Instead of answering directly, he recalls a cake his little sister once fed him. He reveals that simple memory mattered so much to him that he still remembers its taste in the middle of battle. His enemy is thrown off by how irrelevant and absurd that answer sounds. To him, that cake was not merely human food but something sacred, proof of a warmth beyond the demon world. The chained attacker cannot understand why a demon would speak of anything heavenly. The boy asks whether they have ever shared something as innocent and loving as feeding each other cake. The bob-haired woman mocks the sentiment as madness unless the cake had been used as a weapon. He accepts the insult without flinching and moves to strike. His counterattack cuts the bob-haired woman across the neck and stops her advance. Blood splashes across his face, but he remains cold and focused. He tastes the blood almost thoughtfully, as if confirming something. That taste triggers a sudden realization in him. He remembers a little girl proudly showing her mother a perfect score and hoping for praise. Instead, the mother dismisses both children's efforts and treats their hunger and achievements as annoyances. She leaves them with nothing but contempt, calling them useless. The children are left in silence, swallowing the hurt. The girl learns that studying and cleaning mean nothing if her mother refuses to care. She comes to believe that no amount of effort can earn her mother's approval. The memory shifts to a cafe where the mother's jealousy finds a new target. She sneers at another woman's fake smile and blames her own children for ruining her chances with men. She drags the children into her bitterness and asks them to share in her hatred. The little girl silently absorbs every word. Then she acts on that hatred and approaches the woman her mother despises. She runs straight toward her target without hesitation. The girl shoves hot coffee onto the woman, attacking her exactly as her mother wanted. The cafe erupts in confusion, while the victim screams in pain. Instead of scolding her daughter, the mother shields the girl and offers to fix the woman's clothes. She quickly removes the children from the scene before consequences can catch up. Outside, she keeps them close and pretends to ponder what to do next. But her smile reveals she is pleased. She praises her daughter for hurting the woman she envied and treats cruelty as something adorable. For the first time, the girl feels the intoxicating reward of being praised by her mother. The boy, desperate for the same affection, begs for his turn and is promised one later. The mother teaches the girl a twisted rule: hurt the people she envies, and she will love you. She teaches the same lesson with violence too, praising attacks on those she hates. Under that warped affection, the girl grows into the obedient child her mother wants. The mother keeps reinforcing that obedience by admiring how well the girl follows every instruction. The girl accepts that role completely, even when it leads to bloodshed. She stands over a victim with a blade and declares that she will do anything her mother says. The mother lovingly rewards that devotion and urges her to kill again in the future. The girl convinces herself that if she kills whoever her mother names, she will finally be loved. That delusion becomes the center of her life. Remembering it now, she still clings to that same warped comfort. Back in the present, the horned boy bitterly concludes that their mother truly raised them into monsters. The bob-haired woman keeps attacking him in a frenzy, screaming only for his death. The chained young man also lunges in, determined to kill him first. Their mother drives them on, ordering them to hurry up and murder him. The boy answers their frenzy by recognizing the ugliness of what they really are. He calls this spectacle the true face of demons. He decides they are finally worthy of being killed by his own hand and of being judged as demons. The orange-haired woman notices his eyes change and realizes something in him has awakened. She recognizes that transformation with sudden fear. What she sees is Varkan, a battlefield beast known for ferocity. The boy accepts that savage state without hesitation. In the chaos, the bob-haired woman severs the chained young man's arm, and he howls in agony. The boy mocks her for still worrying about her sibling even while trying to kill him. The wounded young man immediately blames his sister for failing him instead of blaming their enemy. That betrayal makes her snap toward him in disbelief. Even while dying, he threatens her and demands she kill their enemy, or he will kill her first. The horned boy delights in their collapse and urges the fools to keep tearing each other apart. The bob-haired woman finally understands how thoroughly they are being manipulated. She abruptly turns on her brother instead of the boy. Her blade flashes before he can react. She drives the sword through him from behind, ending his attack herself. The young man collapses, screaming as blood pours out. He writhes in pain and realizes too late that he has been abandoned. As he dies, he still reaches for his mother instead of cursing her. Their mother dismisses him as useless to the very end and orders her daughter to leave him and keep fighting. The daughter obeys at once, because her mother's command still rules her. The dying brother can only beg not to be abandoned. His last thought is still a plea for his mother. The orange-haired woman throws her black tendrils at the boy and demands he stop resisting and die. He meets the attack head-on and refuses to be overwhelmed. Assessing the situation, he realizes one enemy is down but Mara is nearly taking over Minna's body. He understands that if he delays any longer, Minna may never return. Even though his borrowed body is reaching its limit, he resolves to act immediately. He decides to gamble everything on one final surge of power. He launches himself straight through the storm of tendrils toward Mara. He crashes into the bob-haired woman first, using her as part of his opening. He seizes her head and neck with brutal force. Then he bites into her neck and starts drinking her blood. He feeds greedily, using her blood to strengthen himself. Mara is horrified by what she is seeing. The woman's body goes limp in his grasp as he drains her. He drops her aside once he has taken enough. By absorbing blood up to the limit of this body, he forces a dangerous power increase. He unleashes that boost all at once and dives back into the fight. Mara panics and tries to hold him off with a wall of tendrils. He tears through the mass like a monster, no longer looking human. Mara screams in disbelief that Robbie's Vindika still will not die. He keeps carving through her power despite the strain ripping through him. Inside, he admits this body is breaking apart and cannot endure much more. He feels as if he is being crushed to death from within. Even so, he forces himself onward through the pain. Mara lashes out again in desperation. He evades and closes the distance before she can finish him. She rages that he is ruining everything at the last moment. He answers by driving a crushing blow into her and stopping her momentum. The impact slams her down hard. He pins her by the throat and treats her as filth beneath him. He declares that it is over because the foul lifeline sustaining her has been severed. Mara refuses to accept death and insists she cannot die at the hands of someone like him. He offers one final warning: leave Minna's body willingly, and he will spare her. The promise shocks Mara, and she immediately clings to it. To make it convincing, he swears as Robbie's Vindika on the honor of the great demon king's bloodline. Mara quickly realizes he fears losing Minna if she self-destructs inside the body. She decides she can abandon this vessel and simply find another later. Trusting his oath, she demands he drop his sword first as proof. He agrees outwardly, saying there is no other way for now. Instead of disarming, he cuts his own hand with the blade. He lets the blood fall and prepares a different method. Then he orders Mara to come out of Minna's body. Mara pretends to comply, but her smile reveals she is planning betrayal. She begins forcing herself out as a monstrous black mass while cursing him as a fool. He smiles back, having expected exactly that. The emerging creature extends a clawed limb, ready to strike the moment it is free. He grabs the exposed form without hesitation. Mara is stunned to discover the hand holding her is not human at all. He admits that he never actually knew how to remove her from Minna's body and only tricked her into exposing herself. The revelation leaves Mara reeling. She screams that he lied even after swearing on his family and father's honor. He coldly answers that only his own honor matters to him, not hers. Now separated from Minna, Mara panics and begs not to be forced out completely. He mocks how pathetic she looks once stripped of her host. Mara can only stare in shock as her advantage vanishes. Minna's body slackens, freed but barely conscious. The extracted demon shrieks in agony while he holds it aloft. Its arrogance collapses into begging, and it promises total obedience if spared. It pleads desperately for mercy. A thin black thread still trails from Minna, showing the last connection between host and parasite. Though badly injured, the bob-haired woman rises again behind him with a sword, trying to seize one last chance. The demon immediately tries to use her, praising her and urging her to kill him quickly. Driven by the same hunger for approval, she raises her blade for a final strike. He senses the attack at the last instant. Before he can fully react, the dying young man impales his sister from behind, accusing her of trying to claim their mother's praise alone. With his last breath, he rejects the idea of letting her have that reward by herself. She coughs blood as the betrayal lands. The two siblings collapse together in a pool of blood, destroyed by the same twisted love that shaped them. Watching this, the extracted demon rages that the boy is throwing away his last chance. He dismisses the siblings' obsession with motherly love as a foolish way to die. Still trapped in his grip, the demon begs for another chance and claims a past bond with his mother, hoping that lie will save it. Mara desperately insists her past bond with Ineas proves she is telling the truth and begs to be believed. The wounded blue-haired girl rejects that plea and condemns Mara as a selfish mother who still thinks only of herself after her children died. Mara coldly reveals how little those children meant to her, claiming she can simply replace them, even as someone tries to stop the exchange. That ruthless answer leaves Mara reeling for a moment under the weight of what she has exposed about herself. Ravis cuts her down and dismisses her as unworthy of the fear once attached to a former member of the 12 Black Thrones. Even severed and collapsing into slime, Mara refuses to die quietly and clings to her hatred. She fixates on Ravis Vindika, furious that he has reduced her to such humiliation. Her rage deepens when she realizes the one who defeated her is Ineas's child of all people. Unable to accept that defeat, Mara vows revenge and tries to kill him anyway. Ravis answers her last attack by moving in without hesitation. He crushes what remains of her with a brutal finishing blow. After ending her, he falls silent, letting the moment settle. The last of Mara's body pulls around his feet as the danger seems to pass. But the slime suddenly rises again, showing she still has one final trick left. It lashes onto Ravis's face and eye, trying to invade him through direct contact. He endures the intrusion instead of panicking, allowing the attack to continue for a beat. The contact reaches deeper, as if Mara is trying to force something into him or seize his body. Ravis then declares the struggle finished, implying he has turned the situation to his advantage. The blue-haired girl recognizes that he has succeeded, while the bodies of the twins lie nearby as a grim reminder of what this battle cost. Even so, she warns that defeating Mara was no small feat because the former Black Throne's power was still immense. Ravis begins to answer, but his attention shifts to the lingering contamination on him. He calmly reaches into his clothes, preparing to clean himself up rather than dwell on the fight. Disgusted by the smell and filth Mara left behind, he wipes his face and complains that the whole ordeal wasted too much time. The blue-haired girl mourns the twins and wonders whether their fate would have changed if Mara had never crossed into the human world. Looking at the dead pair, she imagines they might have lived happily with their true mother instead. Ravis refuses to indulge that certainty and answers that no one can know how their lives would have turned out. He broadens the point by noting that tragedy is not limited to demons. Even human children, he says, can die because of their parents' greed. Nearby, a hidden onlooker watches the aftermath with nervous excitement. Once she decides the mission is complete, the spy prepares to slip away unnoticed. Ravis catches her before she can leave and calls her out directly. The startled intruder nearly gives herself away in panic. She tries to retreat behind cover, but it is already too late. Ravis orders her to come out, and she begs him to pretend he saw nothing. The blue-haired girl recognizes the intruder as Beltia and is shocked that such a famous figure is here. She identifies Beltia as the youngest daughter of the Murtano family and a once-in-millennia genius weapon maker of the demon realm. Ravis demands to know why someone like Beltia followed him all the way here. Beltia blurts out that Vanby sent her as a present for her big brother, and now that the surprise is ruined she wants to leave. She bolts immediately, choosing escape over explanation. The blue-haired girl adds that Beltia is notorious not only for talent but also for arrogance and obsessive pursuit of Ravis, though the face she wore here was clearly Jean Jaehee's. That detail makes Ravis realize there must be a reason Beltia chose that human appearance. He concludes that Vanby must have transplanted Beltia's soul into Jean Jaehee's body. That revelation makes the situation far more complicated than he expected. Ravis erupts at Vanby for creating this mess and promises to make him pay once they return to the demon realm. The blue-haired girl mockingly feigns innocence at the threat. When she asks how long Vanby would suffer, Ravis answers with furious exaggeration that it will be forever. The scene shifts away from the battlefield to the demon realm. There, Vanby teases that Ravis's choice to drink blood on the spot was both frightening and fitting for his nephew. When asked what happened next, Vanby casually recounts how the power from that blood let Ravis tear through Mara's attacks and finish her off. He pretends the details are too brutal to repeat, while clearly enjoying Mara's downfall. Varkan notices his sister's satisfaction and tells her to stop using Robbie's now that Mara has been dealt with. She argues that Robbie's has already done enough by executing the fugitive Mara, and complains that the boy in the human world keeps disturbing her peace. Varkan abruptly changes the subject to the rare tea she is drinking and hints that it came from House Roytes, implying a hidden issue she has ignored. She dismisses the implication and insists it has nothing to do with their current argument. Varkan backs off with a smile, saying that since Robbie's can now use his true power, she should simply relax and keep drinking. But she turns serious and brings up Bambi, Varkan, and Gamudare together as if linking them in a secret matter. She directly asks what the three of them are plotting behind the scenes. Varkan protests that even the great demon king knows nothing about it, which only makes the accusation sound more credible. She reasons that Bambi could never have implanted a bloodstone in Robbie's without Gamudare's knowledge. That thought leads her to a darker conclusion she can barely bring herself to say aloud. She realizes they are using Robbie's as bait to lure Morgoth, and Varkan cheerfully confirms it. Enraged, she attacks him, but Varkan insists he only helped because Robbie's himself wanted Morgoth caught. As she throttles him and curses him for surviving this long, Bambi calmly drinks tea and lets the siblings fight. Bambi dryly remarks that siblings seem fated to keep trying to kill each other across lifetimes. Even he grows more thoughtful as the name at the center of this scheme comes into focus. Morgoth is introduced as the being who commands death and embodies the end that returns all existence to nothing. When Morgoth's power moves, even angels and demons alike are drawn into its reach. Its thread extends across the celestial realm, demon realm, and human world, all of which could be extinguished one by one. Morgoth is described as a cruel architect who wants to consume the human world and remake the demon realm. Bambi quietly addresses that distant enemy and promises that the trap is still closing. He sends a warning into the void that Robbie's is coming for Morgoth. Back in the human world, Ravis carries the unconscious young Miho to safety. He lays her on a bed and stands over her in silence, as if considering what he owes her. He addresses young Miho by name, and says he has repaid the debt for borrowing her body. Before he can leave, people rush in after hearing that a student has collapsed outside the dorm. Miho's mother and others arrive in alarm, and Ravis calmly explains that she was injured in the practice room. Her stepfather immediately twists the situation into an accusation, claiming Miho and young Miho planned this together to ruin him. Miho's mother tries to stop him, but he turns on her too and accuses both mother and son of opposing Minha's idol career. He rants that every time Minha was praised online, the attention he wanted for himself was stolen. Thinking only of publicity, he orders his secretary to photograph Minha and frame the incident as a stalking attack to harvest sympathy. He revels in the scandal he can manufacture, caring more about votes and attention than his daughter's condition. Ravis's disgust hardens into murderous contempt as he listens to the man expose himself. He starts to respond, but someone else reaches her limit first. Miho's mother breaks down and screams at her husband to stop, demanding that he finally look at the child lying before him. Her outburst shocks him because she has never openly defied him like this. Ravis watches as she confesses that she once believed he would be a good parent, until he drained the family fortune after her father died and used their connections for his political ambitions. She condemns him for exploiting even Minha now and admits she cannot endure it any longer. He answers with self-righteousness, reminding her that he took in a woman who ran away with a poor man and raised her 2 children. Then he turns vicious, accusing her of devouring her former husband and calling the children ungrateful for resisting him. Ravis falls silent again, but now his restraint is visibly strained. To him, every word from the man reeks so badly that he can barely regard him as human. Ravis decides that if he cannot kill a human in this world, breaking a few bones should still be acceptable. Before he moves, Miho's mother beats him to it and spits the same truth Ravis feels, calling the man trash. That unexpected defiance startles Ravis more than the man himself. The stepfather can hardly believe she dared insult him so directly. She declares she will not let the children lose a father a second time and mocks the idea of a hypocrite like Yoon Tae-sik becoming mayor. He dismisses her as hysterical, unable to grasp that he has lost control over her. She tells him plainly that she is no longer on his leash. From now on, she says, she will be the one tightening her grip around his neck. Ravis, who had judged her weak, begins to see something else in her. In her fury and resolve, she reminds him of his own mother. Yoon Tae-sik tries to reassert authority, outraged that the family he used is finally turning against him. But his shouting now sounds smaller, because the fear has shifted onto him. Elsewhere, the story cuts to Fort Vulture, a US military facility in the Middle East. Inside a blood-soaked control room, a hooded intruder studies the consoles and idly wonders which button to press. A wounded soldier begs the intruder not to touch the launch control, but the stranger only asks why that should matter. The soldier warns that pressing it will kill thousands of innocent civilians. The hooded figure pauses for only a moment, considering the plea without sympathy. Then the intruder presses the launch button anyway, remarking that this is exactly what humans built it for. The missile launch sequence begins, and the facility erupts in alarms. The soldier demands to know what kind of being would do this. The intruder answers simply that he is a demon. He spares the soldier only to send a message upward that Morgoth is responsible for the massacre. Outside, the city remains unaware for a final peaceful moment. Then people notice something descending from the sky above the streets. A mother and child look up in confusion, not yet understanding the danger. The missile strikes and the city is consumed in a massive explosion. Back in the control room, the surviving soldier can only curse helplessly as the destruction unfolds on the monitors. The hooded demon orders Schwa to retrieve the fragment, and the subordinate obeys, addressing him as Lord Morgus. Watching the devastation, Morgus mocks humanity for creating such powerful weapons only to lock them away. He is pleased that the chaos led him to the fragment without effort. Later, in the human world, Ravis discusses another problem with Lim Sion. He explains that his mother refuses to divorce Yoon Tae-sik yet because doing so now would mean losing the family money. Ravis hates relying on such logic, but he admits that surviving comfortably in the human world requires money, even if it means delaying the revenge he wants. So he orders Lim Sion to find a way to recover the stolen fortune. When Sion protests, Ravis flatters him as the smartest human he knows, which only exposes how narrow his sample size is. Ravis tries to encourage him further by bringing up the app Sion created for drug distribution, and Sion frantically shuts him up before anyone hears. As Sion complains and urges them to leave, Ravis brushes him off and asks how much longer they have to keep drinking there. Ravis then notices a familiar presence nearby and says they can leave after dealing with that first. He tells Beltia to return to the demon realm, but she is currently trapped in the body of a pink mascot busily serving customers and can only keep acting cheerful. Sion realizes she is ignoring Ravis, and Ravis dryly notes that she refuses to speak while looking at his face. Sion, still baffled, asks what kind of relationship Ravis could possibly have with the legendary Beltia. That question leads into Belsh's past. Before she was even born, her father received an eternal flame from the demon lord. That sacred fire was placed in the foundry, and Belsh's life began under its burden. As an infant still in the womb, she was burned by that flame before she ever opened her eyes. Her father treated the agony as destiny, commanding her to burn in the demon lord's fire and let it guide the path she must take. For Beltia, the first truth of existence was unbearable heat that scorched her flesh and painted the world red. In the demon realm, her father later presents the completed work to the great demon Lord Gamudare. He explains that the creation is the mouth of Cositus, a weapon that devours the false oaths of traitors and returns them as shards of ice. The weapon is praised as pain transformed into art. Its maker is revealed to be Beltia, the Murtano family's prodigy. Gamudare praises Count Valdir's youngest daughter and declares that this mouth of Cositus will endure as a masterpiece for ages. He goes further and calls the young demon's skill the finest of its kind. Valdir basks in the praise, boasting that unlike his troublesome son Lavis, Beltia is a true genius worth envying. Belsh's brother answers with formal humility, while Gamudare accepts the gift and dismisses his own complaint as an old king's grumbling. The king then entrusts the future of the demon realm's weapon development to the Murtano family, and places that burden squarely on Beltia. The palace stands silent around the weight of that decree. As they leave, her brother makes sure Beltia understands that the demon lord himself praised the work she created. He smiles and tells her that she is the greatest masterpiece their family has ever produced. A small demon girl watches an older argument turn physical as someone is hurt and scolded for being reckless. The dispute centers on what kind of ruler the next demon lord should be, with one side pleading for mercy instead of slaughter. The opposing side rejects compassion entirely and insists a true demon lord must rule through merciless violence. That cruelty is enforced immediately as a terrified boy is threatened with being handed over to his brutal uncle, making him beg not to be sent away. The girl remembers that this was the moment everything began for her. She traces it back to the first time she encountered Lavis, the prince who would become the center of her life. Her memory returns to the isolated castle foundry where she spent her early years. Raised by a father who treated her like a masterpiece, Beltia was shaped into an alchemist through the foundry's flame. For 300 years she studied demon alchemy and forged weapons through relentless research and labor. Even in that harsh place, the servants complained that Belsh's treatment was unfair. A maid named Kasri grumbles that another servant, Jiwang, selfishly ate most of the rare fruit meant to be shared. Jiwang defends herself by claiming she obeyed an order to clean the stables because she feared punishment from Lord Teton. Kasri points out that fear should at least have limited Jiwang's greed. Beltia casually tries to settle the matter by offering her own share to the servant who lost out. Jiwang objects that the math still is not fair and argues the portions should be redistributed properly. Beltia, detached from the quarrel, simply allows Jiwang to take it. Kasri then turns affectionate and complains that the count keeps Beltia trapped in the foundry instead of letting her enjoy life. Beltia reveals her private hope that once her father rises to the Black Throne, she too will finally be allowed to leave. The maids eagerly promise that when that day comes they will take her to the Demon Lord's castle to meet Prince Lavis. At the mere mention of Lavis, Beltia becomes quietly enchanted. To a girl imprisoned in the foundry, the maid's stories became her only window into real life. Through them she learned about jealousy and friendship. And above all, romantic stories became the only thing that made her feel truly alive. That fragile happiness ended when pain finally arrived. After being born and locked away in the foundry, Belsh's life continued in isolation as time passed. As her alchemical knowledge and power kept growing, she eventually lost control over her own flame. The power erupted inside her body, leaving her in unbearable agony. Kasri and Jiwang panic as they watch Beltia suffer. In terror and pain, Beltia begs them to stay back because she can no longer control what is happening. Her alchemy bursts outward in a catastrophic wave. The unleashed fire reduces the two maids to ash and bone in an instant. Beltia realizes too late what she has done. She breaks down in horror as the truth hits her. Time and flame become one in her memory as the raging heat consumes the only companions she had. Left among their remains, she can only call their names in disbelief. Her scream echoes beyond the foundry, but nothing can undo the loss. After that day, weaker demons could no longer even approach the foundry because of Belsh's overwhelming power. Her father coldly reframes the tragedy as proof that she has become the flame itself. Beltia, shattered, asks only to be allowed to leave. Her father refuses outright and insists she must never step outside. He reveals his true motive. Their family's rise among the 12 black seats depends on keeping her power under their control. He also weaponizes her guilt, warning that leaving would only lead to more innocent deaths like Kasri and Jiwang. Crushed by that accusation and haunted by her friends, Beltia vows she will never go out again. Her father is satisfied to see her submit. Beltia silently clenches her fists, burying her grief and anger. From then on, she became completely alone. Only the sound of endless rain marked the passing years. For decades, the only signs of life she encountered were the order forms her father left outside the foundry. Her memories and even her sense of being alive slowly burned away until they felt like scrap metal. Eventually, even her reason for living began to fade. The world outside continued on without her, while she remained sealed inside. One stormy day, two intruders climb into the foundry, bickering as one complains about being dragged there. The dark-haired prince explains he needs a weapon worthy of the future great demon king, but his father refuses to grant him one. His companion says they came because rumors spoke of an alchemist here who can make exactly what a customer desires. The prince demands the finest sword in the demon realm and orders his friend to remember the alchemist's name. The friend recalls a rumor about a genius alchemist from House Mertano, a family of torturers that rose to one of the 12 black seats. He adds that this alchemist now forges weapons for everyone in the demon king's castle, except apparently the prince himself. The prince mocks that exclusion while complaining about the clutter and heat of the foundry. Beltia, hidden nearby, realizes they are searching for the alchemist and wonders if they might mean her. When the prince's name is spoken, she recognizes him at once as Prince Rabi's, not Lavis. Even so, she decides to claim her identity as the genius alchemist of House Mertano. Gathering her courage, she reveals that the alchemist they seek is standing right before them. The two boys stare at her in confusion, having never noticed her presence. For Beltia, the simple fact that Prince Rabi's addressed her directly feels momentous. The prince's friend urges retreat before they are caught, but Rabi's realizes escape is already impossible. Beltia nervously introduces herself and admits that she is the alchemist they came for. The friend refuses to believe such a small girl could be the terrifying figure from rumor. Beltia is startled to learn that frightening legends about her have spread outside. Rabi's dismisses the rumors, sees only a tiny girl, and bluntly asks her to make him a sword. Beltia fixates not on the request but on his description of her as cute. She works through the meaning and realizes he is calling her lovely. That interpretation overwhelms her because no one has ever seen her that way before. Eager to please him, she immediately promises she can forge the sword and asks what she needs. Speaking with unsettling honesty, she explains that to melt the materials she needs his soul. Rabi's instantly loses interest when he thinks the price is literal soul burning. Beltia hurriedly clarifies that she only needs to see his soul, power, and path in order to understand what weapon suits him. She decides that if she keeps watching him, she will be able to read it. Because Rabi's is the first person ever to see her as lovely, Beltia resolves to use all her knowledge to forge a sword just for him. From that day on, she begins secretly observing him. To do that, she finally gathers the courage to step out of the foundry on her own. She overcomes the fear that bound her there, all for the sake of following Rabi's. Outside, she watches him train from hiding as he swings his weapon in the forest. She becomes convinced that by observing him closely she can read what his soul requires. Her concentration sharpens as she believes she has finally seen the answer. Instead of perceiving his soul, she gets distracted by how attractive she finds his jawline. Her supposed insight drifts further into infatuation as she admires his collarbone. She celebrates as if she has made a profound discovery, when in truth she is just swooning over him. She keeps watching him for a very long time, while Robbie starts sensing that someone is observing him. Meanwhile, Beltia devotes all of her time to forging a sword she believes will match his soul. After a long effort, she finally completes the blade. She names it the Damra blade and believes it is the perfect sword, one that can become one with Robbie's soul. To her, it is the culmination of everything she knows and a weapon made only for him. When the work is done, the castle remains quiet, leaving her alone with the problem of delivering it. She panics over how to give the sword to him, and fears he might hate it or hate her. While she hesitates, Robbie's arrives and impatiently demands the weapon. He reveals that a full century has passed while she kept watching and delaying. Beltia is terrified that he came in person and worries he will be disappointed. Her anxiety spirals into absurd fears that he will mock the sword as useless and get angry at her. Robbie's cuts through her panic by calling her name. He explains he must leave tomorrow to annihilate the traitors of Xiaganan and asks her to give him the sword today. His urgency jolts her into action. When he even adds a polite plea, Beltia is overwhelmed by the thought that he is begging her. She interprets his desperation for the weapon as desperate desire for her. In a flustered frenzy, she thrusts the sword into his hands. Robbie's is thrilled to discover the weapon was already finished. Beltia retreats in embarrassment, trying to reassure herself that at least she managed to give it to him. As he stays silent for a moment, she assumes she has failed and braces for rejection. Instead, Robbie's praises the sword as genuinely excellent. He marvels that its balance is perfect and that it accepts his magic completely, then asks what it is called. Caught off guard, Beltia struggles to say the name aloud. Robbie's enthusiastically adopts the dramatic title Damra sword and immediately likes it. He thanks Beltia and vows he will never forget this favor for the rest of his life. Those words strike Beltia far more deeply than he realizes. She hears in them a promise that his whole life will belong only to her. Her obsession surges as she imagines him looking only at her forever. For the first time, she feels grateful that she was born into flames, because they gave her a way to bind herself to him. She decides the path she found in those flames must exist only for Robbie's. In her heart she vows to look only at him forever and to remain with him always. Yet even in that fantasy she sets one condition: she must never touch him. She forbids contact because she fears her flames would burn him away. Back in the present, a listener acknowledges that Beltia's retelling explains the shape of her past, even if some details are distorted. The conversation turns to why one of the boys still cannot look directly at Beltia, and he blames the face she currently wears for triggering his trauma. Beltia, now in a human-like form, is mortified by being physically close to the man she still thinks of as brother. Pressed to ask what he wanted, the nervous boy finally raises the question that brought them here. He explains that after firing the gun she made for him, his body began reacting strangely, and he feared he was losing control. The symptoms continued as sudden pounding heart, blurred vision, cold sweat, breathlessness, and anxiety. Beltia immediately recognizes the condition. The boy jumps to the supernatural conclusion that he is being controlled by magic. Beltia flatly corrects him and says it is simply panic disorder. She adds with equal bluntness that he also has a split personality. He tries to reinterpret everything as demon synchronization through his weapon, but she insists he needs treatment, not mystical explanations. Another boy mocks him for underestimating himself and overimagining things, while the patient admits he had secretly hoped the magical theory was true. Beltia begins explaining her craft by saying every soul carries its own unique energy. That energy differs across celestials, humans, and demons, and no two are the same. If the body that holds that energy disappears, the remaining soul vanishes with it as well. She confirms that she can see the soul of anyone who commissions a weapon from her. Her work is to identify what kind of energy that soul needs and create a weapon suited to it. But she can only adjust a weapon to match a soul, never alter or create the soul's energy itself, which is why understanding the customer accurately matters. The boy realizes that the gun may have excited him because it was fitted to the hidden personality inside him. Beltia confirms that the energy of an unrecognized second personality burst out, and she unknowingly made the gun to suit that self. He is shaken to learn that such a personality was hidden within him all along. Another companion admits Beltia is making sense for once, which only embarrasses her further. Unable to endure the closeness any longer, Beltia flees in a ridiculous disguise to escape the situation. One boy snaps at her to stop being annoying and go back to the demon realm, but Beltia clings to Robbie's old promise and insists she will stay by her brother's side forever. She runs off anyway, refusing to let go of that conviction. Left behind, the boys react with disbelief at the disturbing implications of her devotion. One of them bitterly blames Bambi for causing this whole mess. His frustration explodes as he demands that Bambi stop hiding and face him directly. A sudden streak of pink energy answers that challenge, signaling that something is finally about to appear. A flamboyant messenger from the demon realm suddenly appears before Robbie's and his companion, clearly pleased with his dramatic entrance. Robbie's is stunned that Bambi reached the human world at all, but Bambi explains he came legally as an official envoy rather than as another prisoner. Bambi immediately cozies up to the bespectacled boy and treats him as an ally, implying Robbie's needs smarter people around him to survive. When Bambi casually calls them friends, Robbie's feels instantly betrayed by how easily his companion is won over. Bambi cuts through Robbie's outrage and asks whether he has ever truly considered why he was sent to the human world. Robbie's insists the answer is obvious, believing the demonic bloodstone was given to curry favor with the demon king's son. Bambi dismisses that shallow answer and mocks Robbie's for mistaking arrogance for understanding. He warns that clinging only to surface facts will get Robbie's killed in a human body, forcing Robbie's to demand the real scheme. Bambi reminds him of Morgus, the ancient demon imprisoned in the human world long ago. He reveals that Morgus has begun moving again, turning the conversation from insult to urgent threat. Robbie's is jolted by the name, realizing this is far more serious than he expected. Bambi explains that Morgus is attempting the reverse creation of Circle, a catastrophe meant to erase the heavenly realm, demon realm, and human world alike. The story shifts to a gaudy casino where the machinery rattles under constant use. A slot machine keeps spinning through losing combinations, feeding a gambler's obsession. A demon named Namuja fumes over yet another near miss after wasting days at the machine. His frustration boils over as he demands his money back from the machine itself. A hooded subordinate approaches carefully and tries to calm Lord Namuja before his temper causes trouble. The subordinate offers him a few more coins, and Namuja eagerly accepts the chance to keep gambling. Namuja slams the lever again, convinced the next spin will save him. The reels whirl, drawing him back into desperate anticipation. For a moment he thinks he has finally hit the jackpot and erupts in manic joy. Even as the subordinate tries to report something important, Namuja ignores him and stays fixated on the machine. The result falls just short, and Namuja's triumph turns instantly into rage at another almost win. A nearby human celebrates his own jackpot, making Namuja's humiliation even worse. Namuja seethes at the insult of someone else winning what he wanted. The subordinate finally forces out the real message. Robbie's has appeared in the human world as a prisoner. That news shocks Namuja out of his gambling trance. He lashes out at the machine in reflex, but the moment has already shifted. The abused machine explodes in flames, throwing the casino into chaos. As people panic and flee the fire, Namuja and his subordinate walk away from the disaster untouched. Namuja bitterly notes that even his jackpots never work out, then turns his full attention to the report. He orders the subordinate to tell him exactly where Robbie's is imprisoned. The subordinate snaps to obedience, terrified now that Namuja is finally listening. Elsewhere, it is revealed that Robbie's himself arranged for word of his appearance to spread, baiting Namuja into moving. Namuja's messenger unknowingly boasts that he delivered that false lead perfectly, proving the trap worked. Back in the present, the rooftop conversation resumes under a calmer sky. Robbie's pieces together that his father and uncle planned this together, and deliberately sent him down to stop Morgus. He resents that Morgus kept his own body while he alone was locked into a weak human form for the mission. Bambi explains that Morgus is no longer the same demon he once was after centuries of imprisonment. During that time, Morgus transformed himself into a demon-human hybrid, making him far more adaptable and dangerous. The bespectacled boy realizes that means Morgus can wield both demonic power and human energy freely, just as Miho is being altered by the bloodstone. Bambi praises the boy's deduction, confirming that Miho's transformation follows the same principle. Robbie's demands to know why this burden had to fall on him alone. Bambi explains that if the Demon King's son had entered the human world openly, the heavenly realm would have treated it as an act of war. So Robbie's was disguised as a prisoner to keep the mission unofficial. Robbie's is furious that no one told him any of this beforehand. Bambi bluntly answers that if they had explained it, Robbie's would have refused to come in a human body at all. Robbie's summarizes the absurdity of the assignment: stop Morgus, save the human world, and prevent war between heaven and the demon realm. Bambi confirms that no army can be sent, because any demon reinforcements would trigger heavenly intervention and full-scale conflict. He adds that Robbie's is also the first test subject of the demonic bloodstone, though Bambi claims he improved the process beyond Morgus's crude version. Robbie's refuses to trust that reassurance. Bambi tries to sell the plan by reminding him that he absorbed Mara's power and already has allies in the human world, even as Robbie's resists being volunteered. Robbie's anger slips into insecurity as he wonders whether his father and uncle have abandoned him, and whether Bambi betrayed him for the throne. Then he snaps back to practical fury, shouting that none of that matters if this fragile body cannot kill Morgus. Bambi answers with provocation instead of comfort, claiming they sent reinforcements in the form of Beltia and asking if Robbie's is simply afraid. The insult lands exactly as intended, and Robbie's explodes at being called scared. Bambi keeps taunting him until pride overrides hesitation. Robbie's finally declares that he will kill Morgus with his own hands no matter what body he has. Bambi immediately hails that answer as proof that the real Robbie's has surfaced, and pushes him to commit fully. The bespectacled boy is amazed by how easily Bambi manipulated Robbie's into accepting the mission. Robbie's then notices a flaw in Bambi's claim and asks how Beltia counts as reinforcements at all. Bambi answers more seriously that, for now, the safest place for Beltia is at Robbie's side. When Robbie's presses him, Bambi hints that the Murtano family's nature should make the reason obvious. Robbie suddenly realizes Bambi may be implying something far more dangerous than simple escort duty. Before he can finish the thought, a sealed magical letter appears on the table in a pool of purple energy. The bespectacled boy stares at the unexpected message, unsure what has just arrived. The seal projects a holographic gesture card, marking it as an invitation from a dangerous source. The message identifies the recipient as a VIP invited by Namuja to test fate, making clear this is a summons into his gambling domain. Robbie's recognizes Namuja as the escaped prisoner they were discussing, and Bambi notes that the target has conveniently come to them. Bambi decides his role is finished and tells them to handle the rest, asking the boy to press the seal so he can depart. The boy hesitates, sensing this is more than a simple farewell mechanism. Still uncertain, he reaches toward the seal exactly as instructed. Robbie's realizes too late what that will trigger and shouts for him to stop. The warning comes a moment too late as the boy presses the seal and activates the invitation. A violent burst of purple force erupts from the letter and engulfs them both. The magic tears open a passage, dragging them away before anyone can resist. Bambi watches the trap complete and offers them a cool, almost amused wish of good luck. The teleportation carries them through a storm of casino imagery and stacked chips. They materialize inside Namuja's gambling hall, instantly realizing they have been pulled into his territory. Robbie's blames the boy for pressing the seal, while the boy complains that his day has only become more unbearable. Even in panic, the boy briefly wonders whether winning money here might somehow help them outside. Robbie shuts that down and refuses to let greed distract them from the danger. He explains that this is no ordinary casino but a hall where gamblers wager their lives. He warns that losing even a single chip here can cost a person everything. At the same time, another thread of the story begins with a suspicious movement inside an air vent. A tiny warden of the human world reflects on his duty to monitor sinful demons with strict control and pride. But after meeting Robbie's, he admits his grip on the prisoners has weakened. He decides that after Mara, the next prisoner he must deal with is the one now causing even more trouble. His target is a calculating human politician, Young Tae-sik, who stands alone in his office plotting. The warden recalls Robbie's demanding any clue at all, whether a bank password or a safe combination, to expose the man. Frustrated by how pathetic his own surveillance has become, the warden waits for Young Tae-sik to reveal something useful. Young Tae-sik mutters about soon becoming Unchan's first lady through his wife's status, showing how deeply his ambition and resentment are tangled. He remains cautious, still wanting evidence before making his next move. An aide bursts in with urgent news that the latest mayoral poll has flipped. Young Tae-sik demands an explanation, instantly alarmed that his carefully managed campaign is slipping. The numbers show his rival has overtaken him, shattering his confidence. The aide explains that public approval dropped after a fatal worker accident at one of their construction sites and after Young Tae-sik's callous response became known. Young Tae-sik loses his temper, smashing things as he realizes his plan is unraveling at the worst possible moment. The aide apologizes and reminds him that they had been holding first place largely because of Minha's influence. Young Tae-sik falls silent, and a darker solution begins to form in his mind. He asks whether they should simply clean everything up, meaning erase the problem rather than solve it. Night settles over the city as his decision moves from thought toward action. Young Tae-sik calls President Hong about the Unchan Station Transfer Center project and pretends to be generous. He offers the lucrative deal to Hong if he wins the mayoral race, framing it as mutual help between allies. Then he asks for something in return, sympathy votes, implying he needs a tragedy to sway the election. Hong readily agrees, showing he understands the corrupt bargain without needing it spelled out. Young Tae-sik ends the call pleased that Hong has grown into someone who grasps dirty politics instantly. He then asks where Seo Ju-hee is and learns that she has just left for the hospital with Minha. Seeing the opportunity, he orders their location sent to Hong so the gangster can handle the rest personally. From the vent, the warden realizes with horror that Minha and her mother are now in immediate danger. He races off to warn Robbie's before the assassination can happen. The scene shifts again to a park at night near the hospital district. There, Beltia sits exhausted in her human body, complaining about the heat and how miserable this world feels. Bambi suddenly appears beside her, catching her off guard. Beltia instantly explodes at him, furious over how badly he has treated her. She grabs him and vents her rage, while Bambi lightly notes how emotional demons become in human bodies. Her anger spills into a deeper grievance. Robbie's was sent into wealth and comfort, while she was dumped into a body with nothing and forced to struggle just to live. She remembers being chased by violent men because of the face she was given, making her human life feel like a curse. Now she can only scream in frustration at how senseless and cruel it all has been. Bambi admits he should have possessed her only after she found the crypto wallet she had been searching for before death. Beltia snaps that a coin wallet alone would never have fixed her life, because her problems ran much deeper than money. For once Bambi softens and tells her that is exactly why this can still become something good for her. Beltia is thrown by the idea that she might still have a dream worth pursuing. Bambi reminds her that what she truly wanted was to work for herself instead of living only for her family's expectations. That memory reaches her, and she begins to reconnect with what she once wanted for her own life. Bambi offers a bargain tailored to that desire. In this world she can work only when she wants, and in return she can live as she chooses. Beltia wavers, tempted by the possibility of freedom after so much suffering. But then something catches her eye and breaks the spell of his offer. She notices the pink bear costume head nearby and remembers the horror tied to her rebirth. The memory reignites her anger instead of calming it. She bitterly mocks Bambi's promise as a dream, reminding him she nearly died trapped inside that bear suit right after being reborn. Bambi apologizes and insists that, at the time, it had seemed like the best available option. Beltia rejects that excuse and kicks him away, refusing to forgive so easily. Bambi crumples to the ground, complaining about his back but not retaliating. Beltia stands over him in silence, still trembling with unresolved anger. Then she asks the cruelest question of all, whether the body she originally had was crushed properly. Bambi turns away before answering, the weight of the truth finally showing on his face. He admits that her original body was completely destroyed and that he personally confirmed it. Beltia responds with chilling calm, focusing not on the fact of death but on the pain it must have caused. She says being burned would have been easier because at least that kind of suffering was familiar to her. For the first time, Bambi addresses her with real gravity instead of teasing. Their confrontation is interrupted when Strid arrives in a panic, shocked to find Bambi there with Beltia. Bambi greets her casually, but Strid is too alarmed to care about pleasantries. She blurts out fragments about a password, a hidden camera, and Robbie's mother being in danger, unable to organize the urgency. Forced to start over, she explains that while spying on the Jung family for an account password, she overheard Jung Tae-sik arranging with a gangster to hit Robbie's mother with a car so he could gain sympathy votes and win the mayoral race. Beltia is baffled by the political logic, not understanding why a wife's death would help a husband become mayor. Bambi immediately grasps the human cruelty involved and states the scheme plainly. Jung Tae-sik intends to murder his own wife for sympathy votes. Beltia is surprised that Bambi understood the situation so quickly. Strid adds that she can strongly sense Robbie's nearby but cannot locate him, so they must warn him at once. Bambi realizes where Robbie's must be now by connecting that urgency with Namuja's invitation trap. Without wasting another second, he asks Strid where Robbie's mother is, and she tells him she is probably already near Minha's hospital. The group heads out, dragging Beltia along despite his protest. A gambling token becomes the key to entering their next destination. Inside a casino, they come face to face with a ragged demon who immediately recognizes Robbie's. The demon mocks the humiliation of a prince of the demon realm ending up in the human world as a criminal. He makes clear that he intends to kill and consume Robbie's. Robbie's answers with contempt, noting how far the demon has fallen. The sight of Robbie's in a human high school body only deepens the demon's scorn. Robbie's coldly reminds him that prison should have led to repentance, not another rampage after escape. A hidden accomplice warns that Robbie's can still use demon power even in a human body. Robbie's realizes the demon has support, and identifies Bor among the hidden threats. Bor emerges, promising that this encounter will not end like before. The escaped demon grows excited, seeing Robbie's power as a chance to turn the situation into a bigger game. He activates his magic through a gambling ritual. With a sinister grin, he formally begins his deadly betting game. Robbie's watches in silence as the demon's identity and history come back to him. Namuja is revealed as a former executioner of the demon realm, a man who erased condemned criminals without a trace. His reputation was so absolute that even the fiercest demons could not resist him. He once carried out lawful executions against criminals such as Bezra Kuronai under grave charges. Back then, Namuja enforced the law immediately and without hesitation. His victims could only beg in disbelief as judgment fell. Any attempt to resist was instantly crushed. Those condemned cursed him for taking lives while serving as nothing more than an executioner. Namuja answered such defiance with merciless force. He cut them down with brutal efficiency. His killings were swift and exact. He never let emotion interfere with the sentence. That absence of feeling was what made him so terrifyingly effective. As an executioner, his greatest strength was delivering death without hesitation or pity. But eventually, something corrupted him. He became obsessed with gambling, treating probability and wagers as if lives were pieces in a game. From then on, even after judgment was complete, he rolled dice before deciding whether to execute the condemned. He began offering criminals a cruel bargain in which their lives depended on beating his roll. It was the arrogance of someone who believed life and death belonged in his hands. Namuja would roll first and promise survival only if the prisoner's total surpassed his. Terrified prisoners could do nothing but beg for mercy. His own roll could be mediocre, leaving a sliver of hope. He would even taunt them by pretending they still had a chance. Then he forced the dice into their mouths and made them play. Under his shadow, terror alone nearly broke them before the roll. They struggled just to obey. At last they spat the dice out. Sometimes the result came heartbreakingly close. For a moment, the condemned would think they had survived. Namuja would dismiss that hope with mock regret and order his subordinate to release them. The prisoner would thank him, believing luck had saved their life. He would smile and tell them they had survived by a single point. If he lost, he let them go, but if he won, he beheaded them with a smile. He excused all of it as nothing more than luck. What made him even more monstrous was that he extended this game to the weak and innocent as well. Even children guilty of minor offenses were dragged into his deadly amusements, which he found boring unless the stakes were cruel. He would tempt them with false hope, offering to cancel punishment if they could beat his card. But losing still meant death. Some children were so frightened they tried to accept punishment instead of playing. Namuja refused to let them escape the game. He blamed them for not refusing crime earlier and forced to bet on them anyway. He revealed a low card for the child. Then he showed his own higher card. Delighted by the result, he celebrated the child's loss. Even desperate pleas and promises of lifelong service meant nothing to him. He struck the child down without hesitation. The victim died still crying. Namuja mocked the child for lacking the resolve to die cleanly after betting his life. He dismissed the murder as the victim's bad luck. For him, the moment a criminal lost the gamble, their fate was sealed. Then he devoured them. He consumed not only flesh and bone, but fear and soul as well. Such feeding on the weak was forbidden even in the demon realm. Yet breaking that taboo became another pleasure to him. By then, Namuja had ceased to be an executioner and become a predator addicted to gambling. When word of his corruption reached Robbie's, he decided to intervene personally. At the time, Robbie's was stunned to hear that the executioner himself had fallen. He judged Namuja to be irredeemable, so Robbie stepped in to stop him. His first instinct was to destroy the cursed dice that enabled Namuja's madness. He also meant to shatter the hand that had so casually assigned death. Robbie's returned that same violence directly to Namuja, but the demon realm's laws protected official executioners in ways that made justice difficult. Because Namuja still held government authority, Robbie's could not legally execute him himself. Not even a prince could simply kill him. Robbie's bitterly condemned the officials who kept shielding a monster like that. Even wounded, Namuja took comfort in surviving through legal protection and called it luck. Thus the sword that once enforced the law remained alive. But from then on, that sword gambled with its own life and everyone else's. Namuja became a fallen execution fiend, discarded from justice and consumed by the table. The flashback ends as the present Namuja hurls himself at Robbie's, thrilled to wager lives again. He exults that this time the stake is Robbie's life. Robbie's realizes Namuja is exploiting a loophole by treating him as an escaped demon rather than a human host. Elsewhere, a woman leaves the hospital after admitting Minha and heads toward her law firm. She updates her lawyer and prepares to move publicly against CEO Yoon. Her plan is to file for divorce, go public, and use public opinion to keep him from striking back easily. She believes she can uncover proof of his crimes, though others worry she is exposed. At the same time, two youths race through the street, fearing CEO Yoon will not stay passive. A truck closes in on the woman's car at an intersection. She steels herself, determined to protect her children no matter what it costs. Then she senses danger too late. The truck slams into her car in a deliberate crash. Watching from afar, the children realize they have failed to save their mother in time. The wrecked car flips and burns in the road. Inside the wreck, her body lies motionless. But before the disaster can claim her, someone catches her and calls the timing perfect. A pink-haired demon lord appears carrying her safely from the crash. The children are shocked to recognize him as Lord Barkin. Barkin casually explains that he came to visit his beloved nephew. Back in the casino, Namuja orders the dice to decide the next fatal result. He unleashes a barrage of probability-based attacks, delighted that his power is responding. Robbie's cuts through the incoming assault. He mocks Namuja for having spent 300 years only to remain unimpressive. Namuja insists he was foolish before, but now his mastery of probability has changed everything. He boasts that even Robbie's famed perception cannot escape his calculations. A monstrous attack surges toward Robbie's. Robbie's braces himself as the attack closes around him. Namuja reveals his warped philosophy that luck is merely a flaw in divine design, and that he has replaced it with statistics. Robbie's is forced to endure the pressure of that power head-on. The attack detonates across the casino floor. Miho panics, thinking Robbie's may have been overwhelmed. Namuja boasts that he spent 3 centuries calculating every combination of his abilities to avenge his humiliation. His entire obsession has been to kill Robbie's one day. Robbie's answers with contempt, saying it took him 300 years just to start thinking. Miho suddenly realizes what that means in terms of dice outcomes and combinations. When Namuja mistakes Miho's reaction for mockery, the boy quickly flatters him to buy time. The praise only makes Namuja more eager to show off. He demonstrates another controlled role. Exulting, he claims luck itself now obeys him. He declares that because he controls probability, failure no longer exists for him. Robbie studies the attack pattern and prepares a response. The two powers collide violently in the casino. Namuja rages that he came to the human world specifically to prove his perfected skills against the one who cast him down. Robbie's counters by charging straight through the blast. He closes the distance in midair despite the barrage. Robbie's realizes he only survived the previous hit because he had absorbed Mara's power. Namuja takes that survival as proof of the great demon king's bloodline and grows even more excited. Robbie's rejects the premise of Namuja's game and declares that the final outcome is his to decide. Namuja answers by rolling again, eager to let the next fate fall. This time the dice produce what he calls a jackpot. Robbie's is caught off guard by the term and the sudden escalation. Namuja condenses the result into a devastating jackpot explosion meant to kill instantly. The blast engulfs Robbie's. He is hurled away through the wreckage. Miho can only scream in fear. Namuja, still reveling in human gambling culture, compares himself to Caesar and delights in the idea that the die is cast. Robbie's demands to know how Namuja became even stronger than he was in the demon realm. Namuja reveals that devouring the lives of those who lost bets to him made him stronger. Robbie's realizes that escaping hell instead of remaining imprisoned there may have let Namuja keep growing unchecked, and he condemns the authorities for failing to stop him. A grim suspicion forms in Robbie's mind. He tests it by asking whether Namuja met Morgus after breaking out. Namuja blurts out that Morgus released his mana shackles, only to realize too late that Robbie's tricked him into confessing. Enraged at being played, Namuja escalates the fight and raises the stakes to double betting. The dice land on the same result again, and he calls on Little Joe once more. A storm of summoned projectiles rains toward Robbie's from every direction. Robbie's endures the barrage behind his sword, bloodied but still standing as the fight continues. The gambler demon presses his advantage and taunts the wounded boy, certain that this probabilistic assault will eventually break him. Even as the attacks tear into him, the boy turns the demon's own logic back on him and questions whether mastering probability ever guaranteed total control. The demon dismisses every past victory by mortals as meaningless, revealing that he never valued the outcomes of his games at all. His magic circle keeps the cursed dice and marked letters in motion as the attack continues without pause. The demon suddenly notices something strange about the boy's eyes and realizes the fight is no longer unfolding as expected. The boy endures inside the storm of dark magic instead of escaping it, as if he is deliberately letting the attack continue. He calmly asks whether the demon slaughtered everyone who ever gambled with him, win or lose alike. The demon proudly confirms it, boasting that every gambler who crossed his path was consumed in the end. But the dice produce a result that shocks even him, hinting that his supposedly random system has repeated itself. Trying to force momentum back in his favor, the demon lunges in with another technique. He drives forward in a burst of power, convinced brute force will finish what chance has not. Mid-attack, his confidence falters as he senses the flow of the battle slipping out of his control. The boy tells him he should have noticed by now that something fundamental has changed. The demon realizes the same dice pattern has appeared twice in a row, something his understanding of odds says should not happen. For the first time, he hesitates and wonders whether the impossible is actually occurring. The boy seizes on that doubt and points out that the demon himself is now asking whether the impossible can happen. He explains the exact probability of repeating that same sequence with 2 dice, reducing the miracle to a precise calculation. The number is so tiny that the event is effectively impossible, and the absurdity of it lands on everyone present. The boy emphasizes the point with a cold smile, forcing the demon to admit that probability alone cannot explain what is happening. The demon panics because his entire identity rested on understanding every possible outcome, and now reality itself is contradicting him. The boy reveals the answer is not luck at all but something the demon should know after centuries among humans, DNA. The demon can barely connect the word to the blood spread across the battlefield. The boy explains that blood carries information and can replicate what it has learned. He reframes his power as a blood-based memory that can reproduce the experience of battle. The demon finally starts piecing it together and fears what the boy's blood membrane really means. He realizes the boy endured the barrage on purpose so his blood could be scattered everywhere and record the attack. Desperate, the demon rejects the explanation and tries to cling to his old superiority. The boy answers with a grin, inviting the demon to trigger his own jackpot explosion now that the trap is set. The dice roll again under the same curse system, but now they are no longer acting in the demon's favor. When the impossible pattern repeats once more, the demon's certainty collapses into outright terror. The boy reminds him that he did not spill his blood for nothing. Blood droplets spread across the floor and objects become the medium for his counterattack. He declares that his blood remembers an attack once it has received it and develops immunity against it. The demon watches in horror as his magic is not merely resisted but absorbed by the blood surrounding him. The boy promises to return that stolen power exactly as it was taken. He gathers the absorbed energy into his own hand, preparing to alter it into something deadlier. Then he reveals the twist. He will send it back as fire that burns the demon instead of dark magic that wounds him. With the attack formed, he closes the distance and brings the blazing counter-strike down. The fireball slams directly into the demon's chest before he can defend himself. The impact erupts into a monstrous blaze that engulfs the demon's body and magic alike. As he burns, the demon curses Robbie's and rages about the suffering he has endured for ages. His scream stretches through the inferno as the counterattack consumes him completely. When the flames clear, the boy stands untouched while the demon's dice lie broken and powerless. He coldly tells the fallen demon to go on living in misery if he can. The boy makes clear that the demon brought this ruin on himself by dragging him into this place. The shattered dice on the floor confirm that the demon's game and authority have both been destroyed. That night, the scene shifts away from the battle to a quiet apartment where allies have gathered. Lord Barkin arrives in time to hear that Miho's mother survived only because of their intervention, and the room briefly relaxes into conversation. The black-haired boy, now changed into casual human clothes, dryly answers questions about why he is dressed like an ordinary person. The mood turns playful as he mocks the pink-haired demon uncle for his shameless habits. The uncle fires back with threats and bluster, but the exchange is more family squabbling than real hostility. The girl he rescued dismisses him as a filthy pervert, keeping the teasing going. The uncle lunges in outrage, and she physically fends him off while still insulting him. Once the comedy settles, the green-haired ally reports that sending the boy to the human world paid off because he absorbed 2 high-level powers, then asks about clues to Morgus. The boy explains that Namuja knew nothing important and was only an early experimental subject in Morgus's modifications. The ally concludes that Morgus likely discarded Namuja because an untrustworthy gambling addict made a poor subordinate. They agree they must locate Morgus quickly, but his magical signature has become difficult to trace because a dimensional barrier now blocks it. Even with great power on their side, direct detection is no longer reliable, forcing them to think differently. The ally suggests Morgus may come to them on his own now that Bor has been released again, removing the need to hunt him first. Before that plan can settle, Miho erupts over a more immediate crisis, Jung Taesik and the money tied to him. The green-haired ally bluntly reminds him that the money was never really his in the first place. They then reveal that Strick already left behind a useful gift for dealing with Taesik. That gift is evidence proving Jung Taesik hired President Hong to commit murder, and it is meant to be passed to Seo Jae. The blue-haired helper accepts the praise with smug pride, insisting this kind of covert work is basic for her. As the room calms, the boy asks Banbi if he will be leaving soon. Miho immediately demands that Banbi take the troublesome uncle and the rescued girl with him as well. The uncle refuses in panic, claiming he fought hard for permission to come to the human world and has nowhere else to go. Miho threatens to spread humiliating rumors about the uncle wearing human clothes, which terrifies him far more than any battle. Their bespectacled companion awkwardly interrupts, confused about why so many powerful figures are gathered in his home. The story then moves to a hospital, where doctors assess Miho's mother after the recent attack. They explain that her physical injuries are manageable, but the psychological shock is severe enough to leave her in acute stress and temporary unconsciousness. Her husband gratefully thanks the doctors, who say she survived largely by luck and should awaken after rest. After the medical staff leave, the room falls quiet around her bed. A hand tightens around hers, showing that someone remains beside her in silence. That someone is young Taesik, who coldly remarks that both mother and son are lucky to have long lives, unlike Miho's father. He begins reliving the past, recalling when he first met Seo Ji-hee and how pleasant everything seemed then. Back in school, a teacher tried to stop Taesik from reporting widespread class violence, urging him to protect the school's image instead. Taesik rejected that compromise, insisting schools should value achievement over social ties and that punishing the class was necessary. The administration brushed him off and sent him back to class, refusing to act. That indifference convinced Taesik that adults were useless and unworthy of authority. He left the office carrying that resentment with him. Outside, other students mocked him for reporting them again and treated his sense of justice as a joke. They warned each other that someone as intense as Taesik would eventually turn dangerous, while still bullying him openly. Taesik's anger deepened as he realized they judged him by his face and isolation before anything else. One bully moved to strike him for not lowering his gaze, but even that violence was wrapped in ridicule. The others laughed at his fear and humiliation, enjoying how easily they could corner him. As they walked away, they promised another confrontation later, making clear the torment would continue. Taesik internalized them as lowly creatures who only acted brave in groups and within school walls. He decided that once they entered real society, they would never dare speak to him that way again. Then he saw a girl greeting another student warmly, and his attention fixed on her. In his mind, everyone else became unworthy of even sharing his school except one person. That person was Ji-hee, whose name became the center of his obsession. He convinced himself she alone stood on his level and began defining her as his rightful equal. Her status as the daughter of a powerful construction CEO only intensified that fixation. Her beauty and social standing were enough for him to decide she belonged in his future. But he later learned she had not waited for him at all. Instead, she chose another man, shattering the fantasy Taesik had built around her. Office gossip revealed that assistant manager Park had married the boss's daughter, and Taesik was stunned to hear it. The story spread that Park was an orphan, that Ji-hee's father opposed the match, and that the couple ran away together anyway. Taesik's resentment exploded because he had sacrificed his own ambitions and still lost everything he thought he deserved. He interpreted Ji-hee's choice as a personal betrayal rather than a life she freely chose. In his mind, she abandoned him and even had a child with the orphan he despised. He secretly watched Ji-hee's new family from a distance, unable to let go. That spying hardened into a vow that he would never forgive her. While Ji-hee lived happily with her husband, Taesik buried himself in dirty work and ruthless ambition to rise in the company. He courted President Hong by promising that winning a major contract would erase Hong's stigma as a gangster. Hong eagerly asked what price Taesik wanted in return, desperate for legitimacy. Taesik answered that he only needed one person taken care of, leaving the method to Hong's imagination. He made the real bargain explicit. If Ji-hee's husband and father were killed, he could seize Haemyeong Construction and split the gains. Hong admired the ruthlessness and agreed to the plan. Taesik accepted the deal with quiet satisfaction, having crossed the line into murder for ambition and obsession. Even after all that, he still obsessed over the idea that someone unworthy had been allowed to stand beside Ji-hee. Now in the hospital, he convinces himself that the old rival is finally gone and that the struggle is over. He remembers Hong later reminding him that they were now bound together by blood and profit after the husband's death. At the funeral, Ji-hee and her children grieved while Taesik watched from a distance, already calculating his next move. He approached her not with comfort but with contempt, deciding she could not survive alone with 2 children and should return to her father's world. He addressed her by name as if claiming a place in her life at her weakest moment. The memory shifts to the wealthy family home where her father confronted the aftermath. Ji-hee insisted she could raise Miho and Minha by herself, refusing to surrender her independence. Her father dismissed that resolve as ignorance and ordered her to come back home. He framed the issue not as love or grief but as family shame, unable to bear seeing his bloodline live modestly. Then he summoned someone into the room to settle matters his way. That person was Young Taesik, introduced as the most capable man in the company. Ji-hee's father presented him as a kind man willing to accept a daughter with 2 children, turning her future into a transaction. He bluntly ordered her to stop resisting, remarry Taesik, and restore the family's status. Taesik remembers how hard he worked to put everything back where he believed it belonged. Back in the present, he tells the unconscious Ji-hee that he even tried to care for children who were not his blood. He bitterly claims fate twisted their beginning, as if destiny rather than his own choices ruined them. He recalls trying to play the role of father by bringing gifts and learning what Miho liked. He even queued publicly for a game console, proud that he had finally obtained something the boy wanted. But Miho only cried that he wanted to see his real father again for his birthday, and Taesik was blindsided. Ji-hee tried to comfort her son by saying his father would still celebrate him from heaven. Miho, still grieving, asked whether she had forgotten his father because of her new husband. Ji-hee answered through tears that she could never forget and still loved Miho's father deeply even now. That confession shattered Taesik's delusion that time and effort had replaced the dead man in her heart. He raged that the man he considered worthless was still ruining his life from beyond the grave. His resentment expanded to the children as well, because he believed he had taken in discarded lives only to be repaid with rejection. He reduced human relationships to status and utility, insisting people can only live together if they are on the same level. Now beside her hospital bed, he reveals the full truth to the unconscious Jae. He killed both her husband and her father. He adds that Miho learned he was responsible for President Hong and the grandfather's deaths, which is why the boy became his enemy too. Taesik admits he tried to kill Miho as well, but the boy survived, and he mocks that survival as mere luck. He warns that Jaehee's luck will not last much longer either. With that thought, he reaches his final conclusion about what to do with her. He decides that if she cannot belong to him and cannot forget the dead, then it would be better if she never woke up again. After making that threat, he turns to leave the room as if the matter is settled. Jaehee remains motionless in bed, giving no outward sign that she heard any of it. Yet a tiny change appears at her eye, hinting that his confession may have reached her. A tear slips out, proving that somewhere beneath the shock and unconsciousness, she is still aware. Her remembered words about never forgetting Miho's father linger as the emotional truth Taesik could never accept. And that truth leaves Taesik shaken, because even now he cannot bear that Jaehee still belongs to the past he failed to erase. A man arrives at the home carrying gifts, while inside someone trembles with pent-up emotion. He enters as if returning to his rightful place, bringing presents that underline his role as the family's new provider. The mother gently pressures Miho to accept that his dead father is gone and that a new father now stands in his place. She keeps persuading the crying boy that resisting this new family order will only hurt everyone, especially the man she wants him to accept. Miho remains devastated, unable to let go of his real father despite her insistence. Through tears, she urges both herself and her son to transfer the love they once gave the dead man onto the new husband. But beneath that obedient performance, her grief hardens into something darker. Remembering Young Taesik by name, she focuses her hatred on the man who replaced everything she lost. Her mourning turns into open contempt as she recognizes him as the source of her ruin. Time passes, carrying the story from that painful memory into the present. At school, concern shifts to whether Miho's mother has recovered from her recent hospitalization. Miho explains that she still isolates herself after being discharged, though she at least smiles for him and Minha. His friend is relieved, but the conversation turns to a more urgent problem. Election day has arrived. Miho admits he has restrained himself on Bandi's advice, yet if Taesik wins office, he fears he will lose any chance to protect his family. His friend confidently promises that Taesik's victory will not stand. That night, the city waits as the election results come in. The announcement confirms Young Taesik's victory, making him the new mayor of Unshin. His aides celebrate wildly, while Taesik receives the news with smug composure. He thanks his subordinates and treats the triumph as the reward for their shared scheming. The media frames him as a family man staying home with his recovering wife after her accident. As interview requests flood in, his staff prepares to present him publicly as the city's new leader. Taesik coolly decides to change clothes first, more concerned with appearances than the chaos beneath them. He heads into a private room to prepare for his public debut. The door closes, sealing him inside with the woman he believes he still controls. He reminds her that she is now the mayor's wife and orders her to behave for the children's sake. She answers with silence, no longer willing to play the role he assigned her. When she does not move fast enough, he snaps and commands her to bring his tie. She remains outwardly submissive, hiding her intent behind that silence. Instead of serving him meekly, she reaches toward him with deliberate calm. While rehearsing a noble speech about duty and service, he admires himself in the mirror. She congratulates him and offers a tie she bought in his favorite color, pretending to celebrate his success. He lets her dress him, amused and certain that she has finally yielded. Drunk on power, he asks whether becoming mayor has finally made her obedient. She answers by telling him his interview will never happen. His confidence falters as he realizes she is no longer speaking like a broken victim. She suddenly yanks the tie tight around his neck, turning the gift into a weapon. Taesik panics and rages, unable to believe she would attack him at the height of his victory. She reminds him that she warned him this moment would come. With murderous clarity, she says that if his neck were in her hands, she would strangle it without hesitation. He fights back in terror, calling her insane as he tries to break free. She brings up what he confessed at the hospital, forcing him to face the crimes he thought were buried. She accuses him of ordering the murders of the children's father and her own father, and of trying to kill her too. Then she reveals the trap. She uploaded his confession to the internet. She adds that she already handed evidence of his corruption to the police. For the first time, Taesik is genuinely shaken, realizing his downfall was prepared in secret. She tells him the investigations have already begun and that even his powerful backer, President Hong, is likely surrendering. Her revenge is not simple murder but the destruction of the happiness he stole from her. He can only choke out her name, stunned that the woman he crushed has outmaneuvered him. The television confirms the disaster as breaking news exposes him as the man behind a murder order. Realizing the scandal is now public, Taesik abandons all pretense and lashes out in fury. The broadcast goes further, naming the victims whose deaths are now tied to him. In blind rage, he grabs a heavy object from his aide, desperate to smash the evidence and anyone around him. He hurls it violently, screaming as his carefully built image collapses. The thrown object destroys the television, but it cannot stop the truth already spreading beyond the room. She drops his car key and tells him plainly that she wants him dead, but is sparing him only because of the children. Instead of killing him, she condemns him to a harsher punishment, life as a hunted criminal rather than a prisoner with shelter and meals. She orders him to run forever and live hidden like vermin in darkness. Humiliated and cornered, he swears he will kill her if he gets the chance. Even while threatening her, he snatches up the key she tossed down, choosing escape over revenge. He flees the apartment in panic as she lets him go, having already stripped him of everything that mattered. She calls after him that he will never enjoy his achievements again, because fear will poison every moment of his life. She vows that from now on she will use everything she has to track him, and that every move he makes will be watched. In her mind, he is no longer a husband or mayor but a beast on a leash she intends to keep tight forever. Taesik rushes into the underground parking garage, trying to turn flight into survival. As he runs to his car, he curses her and promises to drag her down with him even if he dies. A stranger blocks his path and mocks him as the kind of cockroach he was just condemned to become. Mistaking the figure for a possible rescuer, Taesik begs for help and offers anything in exchange. Then he recognizes the towering pink-haired man before him and realizes this is no salvation. The newcomer answers with a brutal punch that sends Taesik reeling. Taesik is thrown across the garage, screaming as the attack crushes his last illusion of escape. The pink-haired man praises Miho's mother for her judgment, revealing that he is acting on her side. Taesik clutches his shattered face and spits out hatred, still unable to accept how completely he has been cornered. He accuses the two of teaming up to send him to his death. The pink-haired man dismisses the complaint and silences him with another kick. He declares that ordinary human law is too weak for monsters like Taesik, criticizing Miho's mother for being too merciful. Because Taesik briefly acted as his younger brother's father, he decides to give him a special punishment instead. A small demon approaches the battered man and presses a grotesque mask toward his face while he trembles in confusion. The pink-haired man explains that the mask was originally made to kill him, and now Taesik will wear it. The device is identified as Agnel's breeding mask, and it clamps onto Taesik's face. The mask immediately burrows into him, making him scream for it to be removed. When he tries to tear it off, purple power lashes out and punishes the attempt. The pink-haired man tells him escape is impossible now. He opens a portal to the hell he created and drags Taesik toward it, promising a punishment shaped by his own sins. Even at the brink of damnation, Taesik can only howl for someone to save him. The portal swallows him as the small demon watches without pity. The small demon cheerfully explains that the destination is Carnifica, a hell where one cannot die and must suffer endlessly. He adds one more cruel detail. Carnifica's depraved ruler still possesses Agnel, making Taesik's fate even worse. Later, in that infernal place, the pink-haired man lies sleeping while the small demon sneaks up on him with mischief in mind. Annoyed that he keeps bothering his brother under the excuse of training, the little demon decides to retaliate. He slaps the same filthy Agnel egg mask onto the sleeping man's face as a prank. The victim jolts awake in horror, recognizing the mask and the disgusting creatures attached to it. The little demon gleefully explains that Agnels will keep hatching and crawling into every opening on his face until the mask is removed. The pink-haired man immediately tries to rip it off by force. The little demon panics and warns that brute strength will not work. Instead of listening, the enraged man chases the prankster, threatening to throw him back into the fire. The little demon flees while complaining that the prank backfired because the mask came off too easily. His irritation vanishes when he suddenly remembers he is supposed to go see his brother. He grabs a tracker linked to his brother and rushes off to find him at once. Back in the human world, the night outside the apartment has grown quiet again. Miho's mother holds a photo of her dead husband and tells him that the long ordeal is finally over. She promises him that she will protect the children no matter what happens next. Tears still fall, but now they carry relief as much as grief. She asks her husband in heaven to keep watching over their family, trusting that his memory will remain with them.